Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Wednesday show.
This is the first introduction to today's show. Don't believe anyone that says otherwise. They're lying to you.
That's right. Exactly. Anyway, fuck.
Anyway, today, as I said, as I never said before this moment, we're going to be watching Sam Harris talk to Bill Maher on his Club Random podcast. Because as I know this information and no one else told us to me, people clip Sam Harris out of context and put it on Twitter. Isn't that right, Adam?
That is absolutely correct. Yes. Sam Harris was clipped out of context. Everyone on Twitter was sharing it. What a dumbass Sam Harris is. That's what everyone was saying. And so we're actually going to listen to the clip and show that Sam Harris was clipped out of context.
Right.
So,
it's funny. I'll say right before we start this is that, obviously Sam Harris really doesn't like Trump. People constantly throw the TDS accusation at him. And so, when people heard that clip or hearing clips from this, you can anticipate people are like, oh my God, Sam Harris still has TDS, all stuff. And yet I saw a lot of commentators who obviously didn't watch this stream. They just saw clips or giving Bill Maher a podcast. If you listen to this whole stream, Bill Maher has the far more incendiary accusation against Donald Trump than anything Sam Harris said.
What was that? What is the accusation?
He thinks that when Donald Trump is done with his term, that Don Jr. is going to continue the royalty role of being president forever. I was like, what?
Yes,
even Sam Harris is like, I don't think that's going to happen.
Yeah, he thinks that JD Vance is just a placeholder for Don Jr. That they're going to keep it in the family.
Yes.
I don't know that Don Jr. has the kind of political instincts that Trump has. I have not seen Don Jr. I've seen Don Jr. do some short talks, but he's not funny in the same way that Trump is funny. So I don't know that he can do it.
He doesn't have the charisma that Trump
doesn't
at all. I completely disagree with Bill Maher. I think there's no way in hell that Don Jr. is going to continue the role of the Trump presidency.
JD Vance might have it, though. JD Vance might have it. I think we disagree on that, but I think JD Vance he's come a long way. So
he's come a long way, but I don't think he has even an ounce of Trump's charisma. So
okay, we'll see. He's obviously going to be running in 2028, right?
Yeah, obviously will. Yeah.
All right. So what are we starting on?
So we're jumping around. Adam has time codes. I have time codes. This is your time code, Adam.
For Trump, them talking about Trump?
It says religions.
Oh, yeah, the religious stuff. So Bill Maher, obviously, he did a documentary. I think it's called Religulous or something like that. Yeah. Yes. So he's in the atheist, all religion is bad mindset, which I just, these guys are just so funny. So we'll respond to some of their commentary here on religion.
Okay. And they just think that the most important difference of outcomes hangs in the balance. There's paradise on the one hand and there's hell on the other, and they have the right answer for how to navigate toward one and avoid the other, and nothing else matters, right? And so and literally under that framing, you can't kill the wrong people, because anyone you kill who is destined for paradise is just going to thank you, right? They're just you blow up a bunch of non-combatants, and if there are good Muslims among them, there's no. They're just waiting in the bottle room with you and 72 virgins.
No doubt. See, the problem I have with this mentality that religion causes people to believe untrue things and to do crazy stuff, right? I do also think religion causes people to believe untrue things and do crazy stuff like dive on a hand grenade and save your entire platoon, right? So, my problem with the constant anti-theist critique of religion is that it's all bad. It doesn't do anything good. When I think of it more like guns, right? Guns in the hands of law enforcement are good. Guns in the hands of criminals are bad. So we have to be aware that there are religions in the world that are predatory on other religions and other people. So that's something that we have to be aware of. But religions also do a lot of good in the world in that they promote selflessness in people. And generally we want a society where people are selfless. Like right now there's the LA fires. a lot of people are going out of their way to help people who've lost everything. And it's hard for me to imagine that a lot of those people aren't religious people who are drawn by their religion to help others. So, of course,
That's
Sam
all
Harris.
true.
Yeah.
But
So, okay. But what's your big but?
But
Mhm.
Sam Harris, if my memory serves me, in this section, he's not castigating all of religion. He was talking specifically about jihadist and Islamic extremists and why that particular ideology is more dangerous than other movements. And he's been kind of pushing this for a very, very, very long time. This idea that if you have, I think he even calls it a death cult. If you have a ideological notion that if you die, or you suicide yourself in the name of your religion, you're going to be rewarded with it. And this is what he's laying out. It's very dangerous because then you just say, well, if any innocent person dies, it's actually good because they'll get to go to heaven and all the bad people will go to hell anyway. So it's basically putting a win-win scenario on the most extreme terrorist violent acts.
Right, which I do think you should call out. But Sam Harris often says that the way to avoid this problem is to get rid of all religions. So he is in the mindset, the progressive mindset of guns, right? The way to stop gun violence is just to get rid of all of the guns. All the guns must go, right? Which doesn't acknowledge the fact, and we've talked about this many times, a lot of crime is probably prevented by guns, right? A small woman someone is attempting to rape her, she pulls out a gun and avoids being raped.
Right. Yeah, I think if you were to ask Sam Harris, do you think the world would be a better place if there was no religion? I'm assuming he'd say yes to that. But I'm pretty sure, and I think I've heard him talk about this, that he definitely, he doesn't put all religious belief on the same level.
He's talked about Jainism and stuff like that.
Right,
yes.
of badness. And so he's not going to be like, oh, those Christians in America, the fundamentalist Christians in America that, want it so that they want to teach you that dinosaurs are fake and gay like Candace Owens and that evolution isn't real. I don't think he puts that on the same level as suicide bombers. Because I mean, the context of this is they're talking about Bill Maher's 9/11 comment that got him kicked off ABC, like a billion years ago.
Well, just the problem that I have is he's constantly pointing out where religion does harm, and he just never talks about where religion does good. It's just completely outside of his lexicon.
Yes,
he talks about Jainism as if, I wouldn't call Jainism a successful religion, right? Obviously, it doesn't help its adherents enough that they're adopting it worldwide when you have billions of people adopting Christianity. So they're obviously getting something out of it. It is servicing their lives in some tangible way. Sam Harris ignores that, which is fine. Look, I'm an atheist myself. It doesn't do a lot for me, but I am humble enough to realize that it does do a lot for other people. And I think Bill Maher has kind of evolved on this position much more than Sam Harris has, because Bill Maher, I mean, I think Sam Harris, even in this podcast, mentioned something about, oh yeah, we just have to get more towards rational thinking, which is just, come on, get real. You're not going to get, people are not going to all of a sudden become rational thinkers. So, and Bill Maher seems to accept that. He's like, look, the world doesn't have a whole lot of rational thinkers in it, and that's fine. But people need to live healthy, happy lives. So, and religion is part of that for many, many people.
Right. Well, I think it's for a lot of people, probably like Bill Maher, a lot of atheists, a lot of secular lefties who are anti-woke. I mean, they definitely all sort of see this idea of once you get rid of religion or people become less religious, they get some other religion and it's like this insane woke stuff.
Yeah.
And so I think that's where a lot of the, pull back on okay, maybe we shouldn't be all in favor of this just eradicating religion concept. I know Sam Harris has talked about this. I can't remember what his position is on any of this stuff. I don't know if he's affirmed that to some extent or denied it.
Right.
Downside.
So,
yeah, I blame misinformation.
Yeah.
Which I know you do a lot.
Yes, you did. That was a joke. So that there were scare quotes around that word. So you don't you don't like misinformation, the idea of misinformation the way I do.
Obviously, sometimes it's true.
Yes.
But sometimes it's just, one day's misinformation is tomorrow's information.
Well,
I mean,
Did you want to jump ahead to the next time code? I don't know if there's anything here that stuck out.
Well,
to you.
let's go a little bit on the misinformation stuff.
Okay, gotcha.
I mean, COVID could have,
but not for everything.
no, but COVID could have started in a lab, was misinformation.
Yeah. Although, honestly, I think there are people who could see even then that. So for instance, you and I are on opposite sides of a few of these questions, but that's not one of them. From the first possible moment, I thought that's a totally valid hypothesis.
Yeah.
And to call it racist was idiotic.
Right.
And I still don't know what happened, but it's a coin toss.
But I would venture to say that in 50 years, what people will be saying about this is, wait a second, you're telling me that in 2020 there was this disease that started in the one city where the lab was
It was named after the disease.
that was studying it and doing gain of function research,
Right.
and yet they debated whether it came out of there and even said it couldn't possibly have come out of there. Really? That's what people were doing in 2020? That's what I think they will be saying.
Right.
That it wasn't obvious to them that there's a connection here. Now, it could have been the bats in the wet market.
The problem is that there are still, it's been at least a year since I looked at this. I did a podcast on it, and
We can move on. I don't.
Okay. I
don't care
I
about
just-
the COVID stuff. So.
I agree with all this. It is totally batshit insane that we basically were, trying to be gaslit by the government to some extent, by scientists by some extent, that, oh my God, it has to be a natural virus. There's no way it came out of the lab. It's a total coincidence that this one lab in the entire world that's doing this one specific research, that exact virus would just happen to come out of that exact city. Oh, what a shock. What a coincidence.
Yeah, people really turned their common sense off for that one. So
Yeah, that was like, oof.
Right. But a lot of that was political response to Trump, who immediately started blaming China.
Yeah, it was all, yes, you're completely correct. Trump said China, and then the left said, oh my God, what a racist. You're not allowed to do that.
How dare you?
Yeah. Okay, so this is the next time code you have it called Trump.
Yeah, this is where they talk about Trump. So
that's just a hassle.
And President Trump says he is fully behind getting rid of it. It's part
might
of
do something good.
they're talking about getting rid of daylight savings. So
Oh, based. Look at that.
So they're like, Bill Maher comes in on a point of agreement here. He's like, nobody likes this daylight savings shit. It's so funny. People are talking like people are against the permanent daylight savings because they don't want their kids to go to school in the dark. And I was just thinking, why not can't the school just change the time? Like, why doesn't the school just say, okay, come to school an hour later instead of 7:30, 8:30?
So I remember when I went to middle school, I have it completely backwards. When I went to middle school, it started at 9 in the morning.
Mm-hmm.
So it started pretty late. And then
It's
I think
plenty light by then.
Yeah, no, that was fine. But high school started like, I can't remember if it was like 7:30 or 8. It started like way earlier. It was like crazy. And the rationale for it was because then you'd get out earlier so that if you had
3
a
p.m.
part-time job, you could work it. And I'm like, okay, I'm sympathetic to that. I understand that. But I don't know what the stats are and how many people are working part-time jobs out of high school that they would need to get off early to do that versus 100% of high school kids who are becoming massively sleep deprived because as you go through puberty, you need more and more sleep.
Totally.
And it's just, I feel like
that's a great point.
Like test scores in the entire country would go up by at least 50 to 100 points if you just started high school later. Because every person I knew in high school was just like so fucking tired in that first period class. And it's just such a stupid waste. And if like I was a teacher, and it was the same thing in college too. It was like I get, when you're an adult, like once you're out of puberty, like you don't need as much sleep. And as you get older, you need less and less sleep. And I think people they forget what it's like when you're younger. It's the same thing. It's like high school and college. If you're a teacher, if I was a teacher and I was teaching first period, I would be so mad because it's like, I know that 50% of the class isn't paying attention because they're fucking half asleep. It's just a total waste of everyone's time.
Yep. Yep. Everyone's asleep anyway. God, I so remember that. You're just waking up in the morning, you're like, just fucking pain.
Yes, it's just awful.
Terrible.
MAGA agenda.
Yeah.
I've said that I am not going to pre-hate anything.
So you and I are taking a similar line there.
Yeah.
What I've been saying is that I'm not going to react to anything
Right.
that hasn't already happened.
Right.
So all my whinging about Trump and Trumpism relates to stuff that's already happened, and I'm not talking about hypotheticals.
And I'm also not going to react to if he talks about Arnold Palmer's dick.
Right.
Or some other silly thing.
No factor.
He's a talker. Okay. Yeah. He just talks. So he's one of those people who talks a lot, and he kind of like just.
Have you ever met him?
Of course.
Yeah. And so like
that's good, right? They're both gonna wait. They're both gonna pump their brakes, supposedly.
I think Sam has already done a podcast, and Trump really hasn't done anything. So.
Well, he hasn't done anything except for obviously just the nominations and stuff. But yeah,
I can't remember what the podcast was about, but Sam was definitely whinging for like an hour about Trump, just in one of the latest podcasts. I was like, well, what has he done? I mean,
right,
not really anything. So, not even in office yet. So I'm skeptical that Sam Harris can keep this promise to himself. I think he's just like Trump drives him crazy. He sees Trump as a lying grifter, and every word out of Trump's mouth he sees as dishonest and misinformation, even when it's just like hyperbole to be funny. Sam Harris is really chapped about that kind of thing. So it drives him crazy, and I don't see that ever changing. He's just not able to be impartial about Trump for some reason. So
we'll see.
What was your? There's a photo. Yeah, you showed me a photo of you and him at one point.
That was at the Emmys.
Oh, I don't know if we want to go through this. This is just them talking about him meeting Trump and hanging out with Trump. He does say that Trump is very nice. And
the first part of this is
person.
The first part is interesting. The second part we can skip about the Playboy stuff is stupid. But the first part he's about to say here is kind of interesting.
I forgot about that time. Yeah, that's a classic photo.
Do you have any like a different experience of him in person versus his public persona?
Of course. I have the same experience every single person who's ever met him has, which is, oh my God, not only is he not a monster in person, but he's actually was very nice and charming. And, he's one of those guys who's always looking to make connections and network. And maybe someday this guy, I don't know, but I'm going to like flatter him and give him like 2 minutes of my attention and make him feel like an important person. That's a skill that a salesman like him and a con man like him has to have. And he does have it. I met him twice. Once was at the Playboy Mansion.
So I just think that was interesting in terms of, because that's what you do hear when everyone interacts with him. So I don't know if that's like, I guess it's not like a mark in anyone's direction because they're saying it's for like negative purposes.
I know. Maybe he's just a nice guy. Look, I try to
naive, maybe.
I try to react to people in that same way. I try to make people feel good. I try to get on their good side. I'm not doing it to take advantage of them. I'm doing it just to be a nice person.
That's why you're a loser, Adam. That's why you'll never be a billionaire like me, Donald Trump.
I just maybe Donald Trump is doing that as well. So, and then a lot of the backlash is because he's like, "Hey, I was nice to you. Why the fuck are you attacking me?"
Because they saw through it. Obviously.
Doesn't that make sense? I mean, I use that same strategy. I'm like, "Hey, I was nice to you. We promoted your channel. We had you on our show. Why the fuck are you being a fucking bitch or a dick?"
Because that's the way the game is played.
Then I'm done with them. But but why am I the bad person for that?
Yeah, no.
I'm not the bad person. I'm the good person. They're the fucking backstabbing evil bitches that should fucking fuck off and die.
Wow. Okay.
Yes. Look, you know who you are.
Oh, you do. You do.
Yes.
Okay.
I'll name names a little later.
I have a time code here. I don't remember what they talk about, but let's jump in here.
Making any degree of contact with an ear wouldn't do more damage.
This is
this is the this is kind of interesting.
Back it up a little bit.
Yeah, this
here.
is the wait.
Not too much.
Not
There
into
we go.
ZipRecruiter. So this is they're talking about the guy that shot at Trump.
Right. How could look? This is so dumb. I can't believe Sam Harris would do this. Like, you know how that people are going to react to this. He's got to be trolling here.
He's not trolling. It's completely pointless because he acknowledges that someone really shot at him, and it kind of doesn't really change the situation whatsoever if he was hit by a bullet or is hit by a piece of shrapnel. Someone still tried to kill him and someone still died at the rally. So what is the point about, focusing on this one way or the other?
He's dangling the please clip me out of context material for people, which I'm just like, he's as guilty as Trump then, right? You're always saying Trump says stuff like that and gets clipped out of context.
I don't think that's his intentional at all.
Oh, so
it
it
doesn't serve him in any way. Yeah, I think he's just talking.
Stupidity.
I think it's an honest thing he thinks. He really does think or believe that maybe Trump was hit by shrapnel instead of a bullet. But obviously, it's just kind of like, why expend more political capital or more personal capital on something that's relatively pointless?
You don't think the FBI examined the trajectory of the bullets? I mean, the FBI probably knows exactly where it was standing. The bullets hit certain features in the background, including people. I mean, the FBI knows, with that, beyond the shadow of a doubt, if that bullet grazed his.
Oh yeah, no, I mean, I think he got hit by a bullet. I don't buy this teleprompter thing. I mean, it's not even like, I've never seen a teleprompter that was damaged or a piece of glass or anything that even could have caused it be damaged. I've never seen any evidence of this other claim whatsoever. So no, I mean, and I would imagine that the FBI would know. But I guess this would be an interesting conundrum for the FBI. Let's just say hypothetically, if the FBI knew beyond a shadow of a doubt that actually Trump didn't get hit by a bullet, but he did get hit by a piece of glass or something, would they actually release that information, or would they just sit on it because it's not really important and it's going to cause like people are going to be like, oh, it's the FBI being biased again. Like how does it serve the FBI to release that information if it was even true?
I'm just saying there's several points of data about the bullet hitting his ear, and Sam Harris is defaulting to this one point of data that he believes there would be more blood if it was actually a bullet. Not to mention the fact that you can just in your imagination think of the bullet like nicking very, very, like basically just grazing the ear, like hitting one layer of skin deep, 2 layers of skin deep. Like, you can imagine this. So why is he even saying this? This is weird because he's like, look, I'm an evidence-based guy, so
yeah,
I'm going to ignore all these other data points because I think if a bullet hit the hair on your ear, your entire ear would fall off.
Right.
I haven't said anything about this. I'll give it to you. This just could be based on a faulty intuition about ballistics, but I'm surprised that a rifle round making any degree of contact with an ear wouldn't do more damage. I think a shattered piece of shrapnel from a teleprompter is far more likely to have done that to his ear than a rifle round.
That's so silly.
Have you seen what rifle rounds do to human bodies?
I know, but like, if it just hit it by the slightest possible degree, it just, it makes much more sense. The guy behind
Well, no, but I do. No, there's no question there were rifle rounds flying. I mean, someone was killed. I'm not debating that at all. But if in fact a teleprompter was hit by the rifle round and we know there was shattered glass, that makes more sense to me.
That he didn't.
They have photos of both the teleprompters. Neither one was hit. I'm just like,
yeah,
oh my God.
I didn't see any of that.
That's another data point right there.
Right.
And I'm sure they looked at the trajectory. Oh my God. They probably took photos of every single hit that every bullet made.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, it's funny because it's kind of like the left-wing version of I forget that guy that was all like, oh my God, there was the second shooter on the water tower. He shot through the screen, like the ridiculous.
But this is Sam Harris, Mr. fucking evidence here. Let me
well, at
just
least
toss out all
I
this
know.
evidence to give you this wild theory
Yes.
that I have.
Well, it's interesting that in the beginning of it, he said maybe this is based on a faulty intuition about ballistics.
No,
And
I think
it
it's
is.
based.
It entirely is. Yes.
I think it's based on a faulty intuition about Donald Trump.
Well,
That's
that's
what I think
probably
it's
true
based
too.
on. Yeah.
That's probably true too. Well, I guess the question is, this is probably Sam Harris didn't say this, but I would wager this is probably part of the thinking too. Because I remember at the time, a lot of people were questioning that are like, oh, why isn't Donald Trump like showing off his ear? Like you should show the wound because no one ever really saw the wound.
Mhm.
So that's where I think people were skeptical. That's part of what like made people skeptical. I think there's like I think my interpretation of it is I don't think Trump likes to acknowledge like mortality. So I don't know if he would want to be like have a picture of him with like a hole in his ear circulating that would kind of like follow him forever. And
Yeah,
it doesn't
it's smart.
like it looks much like the picture of him kind of standing up like with the blood on his face with the fist up is like that's a much better picture, obviously very iconic. Like why would you want to ruin that by showing a picture of you sitting in a hospital in some fluorescent light room with like, you know, a little hole in your ear?
Yeah, of course. I'm sure there are tons of pictures of it, of the actual wound.
Didn't get hit at all. It was the teleprompter.
He got hit by flying glass as opposed to a rifle
but
round.
that doesn't
Yeah.
change the basic narration.
No, zero change.
No,
Yeah.
I completely agree that it could be that McLovin just missed him completely.
McLovin.
That's what I call him. And shot the other guy. And he got hit by but you know.
Yes, no, that does not take anything away from him having survived a legit assassination attempt.
Right.
I'm not disputing that.
And by the way, thank God he did. Not just because even for people we don't like, we should not wish their death, but it's a bad place for your mind to be, I think. But also because the country would just have gone nuts.
Yeah.
I mean, we would be in the middle of a civil war now.
Well, so I think we sort
Yeah, I mean, I agree with that. I think obviously if Donald Trump was assassinated, oh my God, I don't. It's tough to even imagine that world, but I do think it would be crazy.
Oh yeah, 100%.
of nodded toward this truth, but I'll just make it explicit. I do think that one of the silver linings of him having won this election and having won it decisively is that it has discharged all of that pent-up rage and conspiracy.
You know, I just want to say before we get into this, because this is where he talks about the Donald Trump being president forever, or Bill Maher does. Someone had like clipped this. I forget who it was. I just saw it, and they were like, Bill, you know, Sam Harris like wanted Trump to be killed, and they played this clip, and I'm like, what are you talking about? Doesn't it sound like he's agreeing with Bill Maher? I don't see where there's any disagreement here.
Yeah, I don't think he wants him to be killed.
I didn't like. I was like, is there some subtle like interpretation of this I completely missed? Like, what the fuck is this guy talking about?
Wow.
And having won it decisively is that it has discharged all of that pent-up rage and conspiracy thinking. I mean, like, so in Trumpistan,
Is it?
well, they've gotten everything.
Yeah.
Right. So now they've got 4 years.
No,
to
they believe in elections again.
Yeah. So like our election system works, right? Apparently, and the elites couldn't keep the man down.
But again,
and there's no conspiracy. The Jews didn't do the thing that we're worried about.
But, you know, again, and I don't think you're going to disagree with this, we didn't cure the cancer. We just pushed it further into tissue.
Well, but I think it's different. But the counterfactual is scary. I mean, so a Harris administration with all of these right-wing QAnon-addled nutcases thinking that the fix was in and elections don't mean anything, and like, all of that's bad from my point of view. So the fact that half of the electorate is that crazy is, I do think they've been mollified, and then now they get to see what it's like to govern with all of the tech bros they love, and we'll see what happens.
Well, I don't know what will happen with that. I do know what will happen with the next election, which is why, as much as we're living in a wonderful time now, where America's great again, whatever the next election is, if the Democrat wins it, they're just going to be ever more suspicious, and it's just going to be. We're putting off this day where something has to give with the people who don't believe in elections, unless we win them.
No, but
That's
no,
an
but
intolerable.
why would you say that if this time we, the mustache twirling plutocrats, couldn't fix the election?
You're thinking too.
Elections works.
You're thinking so logically. That's Sam. This is not how
he
they
won
think.
everything. He ran the table.
Yes, because there was no cheating. But if he had lost, there would have been cheating.
No,
you have it backwards.
Absolutely, but now we've proven that you could have a.
Nobody on the right thinks that there was no cheating at all. I mean, that's why they did the meme "too big to rig." They were like, "Oh, of course there's cheating, but our numbers were so big that the cheating didn't matter."
Right, but they can't.
That's the narrative.
If people have been pushing a narrative for 4 years, they can't turn around and say, "Oh, I guess I was wrong."
No,
I guess
of course
this
not.
foundational belief of my entire political ideology has been wrong. I mean, this is why you got so much resistance from the left when, the Mueller report came out and said that there was no, or they couldn't find any Russia connection.
Oh,
and
of course.
And people had such a difficult time accepting that because you had 4 years or 3 years of Trump Russia stuff that people couldn't accept that. And it's the same thing with the election stuff. You had these 4 years of election was rigged. So then when you have, Trump win, what people aren't gonna be like, "Oh, I guess I was wrong suddenly." Of course not. They're just gonna be like, "Oh, well, they must have cheated anyway. Let me create a bunch of cope about it that makes absolutely no sense about how the Democrats cheated by stuffing a bunch of ballot boxes in blue states, which would be an utterly pointless thing to do. And Trump just won anyway because he just had too much support."
Yeah. No, it's hard. It's confirmation bias, obviously.
Right.
Confirmation bias is everywhere. So,
right.
Yeah. But I do think, obviously, things can be done to make people more comfortable in believing that our elections are safe and secure. So, I mean, Florida did that after. Look, a lot of people say we're going to take, 3 weeks to count the ballots is just not good. Not good. That gives people a sense of there's funny business going on. They're waiting until the cameras are gone and then they're fucking around with the vote tallies. So I do think there should be pressure to fight against that there should be pressure for states to turn out their vote totals the day of the election. Like some states can do it. Why can't all the states do it? What the fuck is going on?
Right. No, I 100% agree with that. Part of that, for some batshit crazy reason, is I don't know why. It seems like in a lot of red states they don't want to pre-count the early votes, and that adds a lot of it. That's part of it. I don't know what the fuck goes on in California.
States.
Yeah,
it's California
then you have right. But then but I don't know what the holdup in California is, because it's in California. It's like specific counties, so that definitely shows that it's not like there are counties that can get their shit together. There has to be something that goes on in these specific counties where there's just some massive retarded regulation that basically is the holdup, and they just need to get their fucking shit together.
It just reeks optically of we're a bunch of fucking cheaters. That's what it reeks of.
Right.
So,
even if it's like, because I forget whatever that county is in California that is like so fucking slow every election. I mean, it's like it's a blue county. It's not going to switch red at any time in a million fucking years. It's not some decisive county, so it wouldn't make sense that they're like, "Oh, we got to spend all this extra time, make like 2 extra weeks making a bunch of fake ballots that don't matter because Trump already fucking won the election," right? So it doesn't make sense that these like slow counties in California are cheating, because it doesn't serve any purpose to cheat. But obviously, it's just massive, some kind of massive level of government inefficiency going on there.
In this particular election, it doesn't make sense. But in the next election, where it's super close and we don't have a decision through those 2 weeks, it's a completely different ballgame. So
no, not in the state of California. The California's
okay.
Wait a minute. Okay, unless the argument you're making is that you have specific counties in California which are like, okay, we already know that the state of California has been called for Harris, but in some future election, maybe the state of California won't go blue. So we're going to keep holding up everything just so that in future elections, it won't look suspicious when we take 2 weeks to manufacture a bunch of fake votes.
Well, first of all, it's not just the president that's on the ballot. Okay. There's all sorts of local ballot initiatives. There's all sorts of shit going on that they're turning in 2 weeks, 3 weeks late. So maybe they're cheating on that stuff as well.
Okay.
I think you agree with the point that optically, if you can't get your fucking ballots in on election day, it looks like cheating is going on. And the problem is people do not have faith in the elections. So it just makes sense to me so that you can give people the safety and security to know that the election is not rigged. Just make them get their ballots in on election day. What's the problem with that?
No, I agree.
Other people do
I
it.
agree that optically it looks bad, obviously.
You're
but-
talking about making people
Right.
feel comfortable with the election.
Yeah, but
And
okay,
yes,
but you're not. There's something you're not considering, here, which is
Uh-huh.
that those counties in California have always been taking a billion fucking years before Trump.
because they're
ever came around.
cheating. Because they're all cheating.
You don't know that. That's just a complete headcanon fabrication.
Well, look,
Okay.
that's what I believe. That's what most Americans
but-
believe.
No,
And that's
not,
look, that is
no,
the
that's,
problem.
That's my point. That's my point that you didn't let me get to. That's not what
Okay.
most Americans believe. Okay. Because before Trump, started crying because he lost the election. And so he had to make up this nonsense about there being fraud, even though he had zero evidence of the case that there was any fraud. That's what made half the country say, oh, our elections must be rigged. It has nothing to do with any sort of actual process of saying, oh, look at, it's very suspicious that California, the state that always goes blue, is taking a very long time in these specific counties. Why is that happening? Maybe it's because there's rigging going on. There was not a step-by-step logical thought process that convinced the public. It was just Donald Trump being a sore loser and a bunch of people that support Donald Trump saying, oh, well, I believe whatever Trump believed because I can't trust any institutions because of wokeness and blah, 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 and all this other stuff that we've talked about, for the last, billion years. So
Right.
even if we had a situation, which I agree with you, we definitely should have a situation or a system where all the states actually get their shit together. They can be like Florida or some of these other states that get their fucking ballots counted. Florida was the laughing stock of the country in 2000, and they put on their big boy pants and they fixed whatever the problems were. And they made sure they got their shit in order. And the rest of the states need to do that. So I agree 100%. They should do that. But even if that was the case, if all the states got their shit together and they all could come out within a few hours, that night, have all the votes counted, boom, 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 boom. If Donald Trump comes out there and loses and says the election is rigged, that's not all the same people are going to say the election is rigged. They're not going to give a shit that that didn't take extra time to count the ballots because that was never the problem in the first place.
You're saying that the problem is Donald Trump
Yes,
came out and said that it was rigged.
of course.
And that making all of the counties turn in their ballots the night of the election is not going to change the fact that if Donald Trump comes out and says the election was stolen, that people are going to believe the election was stolen.
100%. Yeah.
So then everyone can just take their own sweet time to count the ballots. And it's
No,
not really
I don't
gonna
agree with the
make
last
any
part
difference.
of that. As I said,
Okay.
like 3 times, they should get their shit together just because I think it's better to do that. But it wouldn't make a difference. The same people who are saying their election is rigged would say it was rigged based purely on Donald Trump saying it was rigged. It's not based on anything logical. It's not based on anything else, on any fact on the ground.
Well, I mean, then we're talking about the logic of why the fuck does it take one county 3 weeks to count the ballots and it takes another county the night, like they have the results out the night of the election. That's a logical thing to ask, right? What's
It
taking
is a
so
logical
long?
thing to
And it's
ask,
very logical
Yeah.
to jump to the conclusion that they're cheating. They're making up a bunch of different ballots.
I understand that. I've never said anything other than that. I just said no one was doing it before Donald Trump started crying about it. So that's obviously the factor here. This is, Bill Maher is.
Hold on. In 2000,
no.
when
Bill Maher is completely right here. I disagree. Well, I don't.
in 2000, when this happened in Florida, people weren't crying about it. Hell yeah, they were crying about it.
Yeah, but wait.
They
a
were
minute.
like, "What the fuck?"
Okay.
And Florida went in and cleaned up their act.
Yeah, but wait, that wasn't okay. The problem in 2000 was because you had 2 massive problems. You had a ballot that was poorly constructed that basically made it so that accidentally, because it wasn't intentionally, accidentally made it so Bush won the presidency. If that ballot was constructed like the way most people would have expected it, Al Gore would have been president and the entire course of American history would have been changed because 3,000 elderly Jews or however many elderly Jews it was in West Palm Beach were, had too poor eyesight or too lazy to fucking see who the fuck they were voting for and voted for the wrong candidate by accident. Okay,
Right.
voted for Pat Buchanan or something, right? So that was part of it. And then the other part was they had all the recounts with the hanging chads and all that nonsense, which Florida got rid, at least where I've ever lived in Florida. It's always you hit the little screen and then it like prints out the little scan sheet. So they completely got rid of all the little punch ballot nonsense that was causing the problems in the first place. So then they had the recount and they had to go look through all the fucking punch ballot like by eye and like, so they had some physical reason that was making it like take a long time.
Look, my point is that, and I agree with you, when a politician comes out and says, oh, this was totally rigged against me, we can live in a world where there is very little evidence for that person to point to, or we can live in a world where counties are just turning in their ballots 3 weeks later. So it has some credibility when the person says that. I'm saying we should make our elections so when somebody comes out and says everyone cheated, the credibility of that claim is reduced to nothing. Right?
It doesn't matter. Wait, hold on.
Yes, it
there
does.
Were like, no, wait.
Oh my God. How does it not matter?
I'll tell you exactly why it doesn't matter. When the 2020 election first happened, there were like 10 or 12. Wait, no, stop. There were like 10 or 12 different claims of fraud that Donald Trump and Trump supporters were making. And every single one of those claims was disproven. Okay. Every single one of them publicly. Not just by Bill Barr to Donald Trump personally, but publicly. And what happened? Did all the people say, oh, well, I guess Trump was wrong. All these individual claims were proven wrong. No, they jumped to a different set of claims. And they've been jumping to different set of claims ever since. They just keep finding more new things. Every time an old claim is disproven, it gets forgotten and thrown to the wayside, and a new claim pops up and everyone jumps to that claim. So obviously, and I don't know why this is, I don't even know why you disagree with this. You have the most obvious form of post hoc, after the fact reasoning of people want to believe it's true because Donald Trump said it was true.
My point is that you should eliminate those claims that people can jump to, especially the ones that are easy to eliminate, like not turning in the ballots 3 weeks later.
I don't disagree with that. I just said it doesn't matter.
Well, that's all I'm saying.
No, that's not what you're saying.
Look,
I'm saying it's not going to make a difference, and you're saying it is going to make a difference.
Oh my God. Oh my God. Okay, so if there are 10 claims that people can jump to, and they're on a spectrum of credibility from, oh, this seems super credible to this is obvious bullshit, and you eliminate all the ones that have any hint of intuitive credibility, like the ballots being turned in 3 weeks late, then only the claims that they can point to are obviously ridiculous. So they look ridiculous pointing to those claims.
Okay. I think it's weird because in this conversation, or in this specific part of the conversation of Bill Maher and Sam Harris, I disagree 100% with Bill Maher's end point here. I think Sam Harris is correct in terms of that Trump winning dissipated a lot of the energy. And so I agree with that. And I don't know if there's going to be, I don't know, whoever the fuck wins, if say it's JD Vance versus some Democrat, and if JD Vance loses, like, yeah, there's going to be people that say it's rigged, but I don't think it's going to be anything like, 2020 with Trump. Hold on. this is important to this part of the conversation.
Okay, finish.
And so I agree with the end point that Sam Harris is talking about, but it's weird because I completely disagree with his rationale. And I agree with Bill Maher's rationale, but I completely disagree with Bill Maher's endpoint because Sam Harris is trying to look at it from some logical level, be like, oh, well, this proves from a logical level that Donald Trump won. Okay, that doesn't matter. None of that fucking matters. And Bill Maher is right when he says that Sam Harris is completely naive to look at this and to think that people are looking at the situation in a sort of rational, logical way, because we all know that that's not how 99% of people look at anything political. It's mostly tribal. It's mostly ideological. It's mostly just riddled with bias, right? I disagree with Bill Maher's endpoint because I think the reason that people aren't going to necessarily make a big fuss about 2028 if a Democrat wins is just because Trump himself is the emotional weight that draws everyone in, and he's the charismatic leader that kind of has that power over people. And I don't think JD Vance is going to necessarily have that energy, even if he does say it was rigged. I don't think he's going to have that energy, that effect over people the way that Donald Trump has his effect over people. And so that's why I'm saying I think it is naive of you to say, oh, well, if we get rid of this thing, which I agree we should get rid of, where you have logically, if you logically make it so that there's a logical way that the elections are logically better, I mean, that's not going to have any effect on people's intuitions, on people's emotions, on people's biases, because they're not thinking about this on a logical level in the first place.
Yeah, obviously you're going to have certain extremes that are going to believe any claim at all. But our institutions should be structured to avoid making those biases seem credible at all. So let's take two things that Donald Trump can point to, or just any charismatic leader, right? Okay. There is the ballots took 3 weeks to count as a claim for why cheating exists. And there is, I looked at my crystal ball and saw people cheating. Okay.
Right.
Out of these two claims, which is going to seem more credible?
Mm-hmm.
Because you're basically saying if Donald Trump says, I looked at my crystal ball and I saw cheating, people are going to be like, oh, yes, of course, Master Trump. That's exactly what happened.
Well, he's obviously not going to frame it that way because he has to frame it in some way that sounds somewhat believable.
Of course.
Sure.
Look, and we can't make it illegal for Trump to own a crystal ball, okay? But we can make it illegal for them to turn their ballots in 3 fucking weeks late.
Okay, I literally don't know what we're arguing about. Well, I do know what we're arguing about, but I don't know why you just...
Well, no, your argument, look, first of all, you're calling me naive, okay?
Yes.
And you seem naive.
I'm very cynical. Yes.
Well, you seem naive in thinking that any politician can say, "Oh, I looked at my crystal ball and saw cheating," and people are going to believe them.
I just specifically
sooner or later, you're going to run out of credible claims that they can point to.
I just specifically said that I said the opposite of that. I didn't say any politician could do that. I said specifically Trump. I don't think other politicians have this
think
power.
You're giving Trump too much credit. I think as soon as Trump pulls out the "I looked at my crystal ball" claim, it's just.
I agree with you. If Donald Trump said, "I looked at my crystal ball," or I talked to God on a hilltop and he told me there was cheating, I agree with you. I don't think that's going to be very persuasive. But if he doesn't say that, if he says, hey, look, here's a video of some women and she pulls a tub of votes from the table and puts on top of the table, and even though that gets completely 1000% disproven to be true, people to this day will still believe that person, brought up, extra votes from underneath the secret table.
That is something that we could deal with in the system. That is something that doesn't need to exist. Doesn't need to be evidence people can point to.
What it's going to, it doesn't matter. What do you mean? People still point to that to this day, despite the fact that we have completely unedited full footage that shows what those ballots were, how they got there, and everything. There's a complete chain of custody that shows, what was going on with those ballots, and that ballots weren't multiply scanned in some improper way. Despite all those things have been 100% disproven, it doesn't matter. People still point to them and will always point to them.
Yeah. So you're saying that you can't idiot-proof the system, and I don't believe that to be the case.
You can do the best you can. Which
like, why do those ballot things have to look exactly like a fucking suitcase that you take onto an airplane? Why can't they have like a huge official seal on them, ballots, or something like that? Huh?
I mean, okay, I'm not opposed to that. I just don't think it's going to make a difference. So,
well, look, this is the thing. When you say it's not going to make a difference, you are saying that as soon as the politician gets to, I saw it in my crystal ball, people are still going to believe them. Where I'm saying, look, all of the claims that seem to have any credibility, you can weed out of the system. Which you seem to agree that that's possible.
Intuitions come first, facts come second.
Yeah, but
okay. This is a core part of our philosophy, so I don't know why you disagree with me on this.
And look, there are people that are obviously going to take the crystal ball claim and the ballots came in 3 weeks later claim with the same kind of credibility, okay?
Right.
But you can't say that is the majority of the electorate, huh? That's maybe 20% of the electorate, right? 10% of the electorate who are going to say, oh yeah, I believe the crystal ball. Right?
No, I disagree. I think that's 80% of the electorate.
You think 80% of the electorate is going to be like, oh yeah, the crystal ball.
The majority of Republicans still think, I believe when you look at polling, the majority of Republicans still think that Trump had the election stolen from him in 2020. The majority of Democrats still think that Donald Trump had some weird, it's like a Russian plant or something. Right.
But look, a lot of those people believe
that makes sense to me that it's all based on intuition, not facts.
a lot of people believe that the election was stolen because they buried the Hunter Biden story, which factually happened. So you can't
Well,
really
I
look
mean,
at
I guess
those
that's true from the
numbers.
polling. Yeah, that's true from the polling. I don't know what the thought process, but then even that's it. Even that is another story. There's literally zero evidence, and just me saying this will trigger people's to no end. Okay, there is zero evidence that the FBI intentionally told Facebook or Twitter or something that, oh, expect that, there's going to be some Russian disinformation, and then 7 months later when the laptop comes out, they're like, oh, this was obviously the FBI doing a Jedi mind trick on Twitter 7 months later to convince them that this was the thing, right? And it's all part of some fucking massive deep state cover up to, blah, 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 despite the fact that there's literally no evidence for that. And there's actually the Twitter files show that there was tons of evidence against that, because it shows all the internal debate and the fact that no one really knew. And in fact, the FBI at first said that the laptop was real, but then later changed it to no comment. The fact that every indication was pointing the laptop was real from Twitter's perspective and from Facebook's perspective, people don't care because they want to see the information the way they want to see it. They'll say, well, no, it was all, that's what we had that, like, I had that like 3-hour debate with Connor about this exact thing.
Yeah, Connor's a partisan person, though. I mean, he wants to believe what he wants to believe. So,
right, but that's okay.
I don't think that's. I think like 30% of the electorate is partisans on each side, and that leaves 40% of people who are not partisans and will look at the evidence.
Okay.
Objectively.
They can agree to disagree.
Right, of
Asha
course.
C,
but that's fine.
For $10 says Sitch is incredibly wrong about the 2020 election. People don't just believe Trump because Trump. I'm kind of tired of the gaslight. Then the 2020 election was totally normal in every way. Well, Asha C, I mean, you're free to send me whatever it is you're talking about that shows that the 2020 election was false. I can basically guarantee you that you did not look at the billion claims that originally came out by Trump and by Trump supporters originally in 2020. And then when they all got disproven, you were like, oh, well, I guess I was wrong about this. Maybe I should look at these other claims with some level of skepticism. I do not believe for a second that you actually engage in any of that thought process, but feel free to send me any evidence you have of the 2020 election being rigged.
Ultimately, we agree. We want to get rid of all the things in the election system that politicians, bad actors can easily point to and say, oh, obviously they were cheating and here's my evidence. It took them 3 weeks to turn in the ballots, right? So there are a number of things like that I think we should take care of to kind of idiot proof our elections. It amazes me that we haven't done it. So,
well, it's because it has to be done. Every state has the power, and I think even counties have the power to run them however they want on very local levels. So it's more like you have to get all the different actors to do it themselves. It's not just like the federal government says, we're going to just do it one way that's, efficient and efficient, which
I wonder
has its pros and cons, obviously.
Look,
it makes it much harder to rig because everything's decentralized.
Why can't they just do a deadline that you have to have your ballots in by election?
Well, they do
midnight on election day.
They do. The deadline is just far, far away, so they have a lot of time.
Well, no, I'm saying why can't they?
And that was, when people had to count it by hand and deliver it by horses, so they gave them a lot of time to do all this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So, I mean, I guess you're right. You could have the federal government could just change the law or change the constitution to make a stricter deadline for the votes, but I'm skeptical that you could get the requisite, votes to do that.
Right. Yeah.
But I guess you could theoretically. Actually, for $5 says, I didn't say the 2020 election was false. I said it was not normal. Well, okay. I mean, I guess I don't know what you mean by that. If you want to point to the Hunter Biden story or you want to point to the mail-in ballot stuff, then okay. I mean, I agree with you. Mail-in ballot stuff definitely helped Biden. I think people overblow the Hunter Biden laptop story. The same people that say that cost Trump the election completely forget that Comey came out a week before the election and said that Hillary Clinton was being investigated by the FBI. And then those people turn around and say, well, Comey was actually a deep state agent trying to destroy Trump, even though he maybe helped Trump win the election with the same exact thing. So I don't know. What's good for the goose is good for the gander, I guess.
God, I hope JD Vance comes out and says, I looked at my crystal ball and I know there's cheating.
Well, he's JD Vance. He'll say that he talked to Mencius Moldbug, and he has a direct line to God as part of the divine monarchy, and he told him that they were cheating. So that's how it worked.
I think JD Vance is smart enough to know that that's not going to work on the majority of people.
I know. I was.
Yeah.
joking.
No, obviously. This is a comedy show.
It's a comedy show.
I encourage it. Please.
Okay.
Joke more.
Fair election in the year 2024.
You're living in the world where you're encountering people like you.
Right.
And that's not the world we live in.
See, this is what I believe in tremendously. He's like, listen, you're a fucking rational, logical person. Most people aren't.
That's my argument. What are you talking about? This is the argument I just had. I thought this is my position.
This is so weird though, because I think it's complete hubris on Sam Harris's part. I think as soon as Trump enters the frame, all logic goes out the window for Sam Harris.
Well, but it's kind of the opposite, because Sam Harris is assuming a level of logic on the population that I just don't think exists, as I just said for the last 15 minutes. So
that's not.
I'm a bad judge of character.
You are. That is not going to happen. What's going to happen is the next time a Democrat wins, there's going to be
it was rigged. Yeah.
A fucking shitstorm, and I don't know how that ends. And it depends also on who is in positions of power that are being put.
It ends the same way that I just laid out. You basically get all the things that they can point to and say, this is evidence of cheating taken out of the system. That's what I would do.
There now. I mean, I did an editorial once about power begets power. The more power you have, the more power you get. So now
what are you worried about, and what are you agnostic about, and what are you hopeful about?
I'm worried about that now that they have a lot of power controlling all the levers, they do what all countries do, where the people who want to stay in power forever put the people in place who are just the total loyalists. That's the courts.
But are you worried that we're not going to have a valid 2028 election because he's going to run for a third term or something?
It doesn't really. That's.
Oh man, he's totally baiting it.
I know.
Oh, he's like, I don't want to say this because everyone's going to hate me, but maybe I can get Bill Maher to say it.
Well, this is so interesting. It shows you how fucked up our social media environment is. Like, Bill Maher is going to lay out an argument that I think is ridiculous, that Donald Trump is going to create a dynasty of like Trump named people becoming president of America forever. I think this is an absurd idea. I really didn't see anyone on the right attack Bill Maher over this. And I think part of it's because they want to attack Sam Harris. Bill Maher is like sort of more on like the, sometimes you like Bill Maher because he shits on the woke stuff, but also it's because so much of like how social media and how the internet reacts to something is just no one watches the source material. They just watch a clip. So because this clip didn't get cut and uploaded and no big account tweeted about it, people just don't know it exists at all.
But it could come out 2 years later when they want to throw Bill Maher under the bus.
Exactly.
And,
right. And it's the same thing with, then this is like the totally batshit crazy to me. It's like the Elizabeth Warren clip. All the big right-wing accounts have this 20-second out of context Elizabeth Warren clip that we watched yesterday, where she is grilling Pete Hegseth about him being a massive hypocrite in terms of wanting generals to not be able to go into the military industrial complex, to avoid,
to fight corruption.
Bribes,
yeah, exactly.
Right, and corruption for 10 years after they leave service. Why doesn't he do the exact same thing? Because he's going to be in a very similar, or actually he's going to be in even stronger position of power than the generals are going to be in terms of control of the military. Yeah. And he just very dismissively says, well, I'm not a general. And people laugh. Now, we're obviously reading into this. I read into it because he was so wrong in the situation that people are laughing at the absurdity of that answer, not that they're laughing with him.
Yeah, I read that same thing.
Right. But then people they play that clip out of context. They're like, oh my God, Elizabeth Warren owned. And it's like, it's just completely backwards of reality, just based on a clip.
I watched a clip on Sky News. It's that lefties losing their minds or something like that. It's a regular segment that they do. And Batya Ungar Sargon was on, and I was looking carefully because they used that clip as like lefties losing their minds of Elizabeth Warren getting owned,
yes,
right?
Yes.
And Batya of course, saw right through it and said it was the perfect opportunity for Pete to say, you know, I'm not going to do that, show a bit of populism. And he didn't do it. And she was like, what
No.
the fuck? Why? So she totally dispelled the
Well, good for her.
Elizabeth Warren bullshit.
Right,
And
right.
I was like, oh, please tell me she's going to do it. And she did. Yeah. She's definitely, I like her a lot. I think her takes are pretty good. So, and I was
Good for
happy to
her.
see that. Yeah.
Right.
Cause look, I don't know why. It is so easy for people just to say, because their intuition is, of course, Elizabeth Warren is a dumbass that we all
That was
hate.
our intuition.
Yeah, look,
Literally,
I can't stand her either.
we teed up the clip thinking like, oh, here's Elizabeth Warren. She's gonna say something stupid and get like annihilated. Right?
Yeah,
And then we're
totally,
like, oh, shit.
totally. So, but and I also think a lot of people, they do this thing where they do the clip and they tweet it out and they say what happens in the clip. But I think a lot of people just read what
They don't watch the clip.
they
Yeah,
don't
you're
watch
right.
the clip either.
Yeah,
So they're
that's true.
not even really seeing the out of context clip. They're just believing the way it's framed in the tweet.
Right.
So
right. That's
Yeah.
completely true. Yeah.
and look, we all know Elizabeth Warren is terrible. So
Yeah.
hard-
She's a very annoying voice too, which doesn't help. But
yeah. So anyway,
I mean, he could, and that would be awful. I don't know. It's a very sort of Prince Charles situation, you know, like where Don Jr. is like, "Mom, would you please die, Queen Elizabeth?" So I mean, how old was Prince Charles when he finally got it?
Right,
And Don Jr. is kind of be chomping at the bit. But we are heading toward that, where like North Korea and the Assad regime and many other places in the world, that they have elections, wink, wink, but really it's just the scion.
oh my God. So Bill,
I told
Bill
you, it's like,
Maher.
what?
Bill Maher is basically coming out and saying, "Oh yeah, our elections are a fraud."
Yeah. You're right.
Like, what the fuck? What the
That's
fuck?
funny. That's
What the
funny.
fuck?
Yeah.
Weren't you just giving the right a hard time for not believing elections?
Mhm.
And now you don't. Now you're basically throwing shade at elections.
Right.
Not good, Bill.
Of the ruling family that takes over. And of course, their fans love this. So, you know, I think J.D. Vance is just a placeholder for Don Jr. I think the fact that they look alike makes it easier. They just put Don Jr. in there and they tell them it's the same guy.
So you think Trumpism continues?
I don't think Don Jr. looks like Trump at all.
I don't, or JD Vance. No, I don't either.
Oh, does he mean? Oh, maybe he means Don Jr. looks like JD Vance.
That's what he said. Yeah.
Oh, okay, I misunderstood.
Yeah. Don Jr. I don't think
they-
I don't really think they look alike.
I mean, he looks more like JD. Yeah, not exactly.
They
but
both
he
have
looks-
the white
it's
guy
the
with the
beard.
beard thing.
It's the
yeah.
beard. Yeah, it's just the beard. You're right. They have completely different face shapes. It's just the beard and the hair.
I do think JD Vance. I think JD Vance is going to be a good candidate. So he's going to be tough to beat.
We'll see.
Yeah.
Without Trump?
Absolutely. I think Trump.
Yeah. So I
yes,
have no intuitions about that.
very often with a person named Trump.
Right. Yeah. So I would. That feels
Don
like a coin toss to
Barron,
me.
I could see doing
Well,
this.
He's
No.
8 feet tall, so yeah, it would be.
So was George Washington for his day.
Yeah.
You know, yes, but even without them,
It's too risky to bet on Barron right now, just because I have not heard him speak. Like, he does look good on paper, obviously, but so much of it is the charisma of being able
Right.
to interface with reporters and people, and this is where Kamala Harris
Is
just
he even
utterly
interested?
failed.
I no, I don't know anything about him, like as a person.
I don't either.
Right,
Yeah.
and you're correct. Who is the person that looks so amazing on paper and then
Yeah,
utterly,
Kamala Harris.
Yeah, Kamala. Yeah, Harris.
As soon as she
Left-wing,
opened her
you know,
mouth, it was over.
prosecutor who's got all the minority status in the world, and then she opens her mouth and it just crashes and burns.
Yeah. I think it's funny because I do think AOC is going to be running in 2028 as well. And oh God, she's just falling apart as a politician. So
I don't know. She'll be what, 39 then?
Mhm.
So it's still kind of young
yeah,
for a president.
Trumpism to me is a response to something we both talk a lot about, which is the insanity of the left. As long as one half of the country feels that, even if they don't like Trump so much, we just can't let these crazy people take over, the people who don't know what a woman is.
Right.
You know, that kind of stuff. The people who think we are living in this racist, patriarchal nightmare of a country, which we're not. We have issues. We have problems.
Do you think the pendulum is swinging back on that now?
You know, we've heard this for the last.
Well, I would say it is interesting because I think that's 100% true, obviously.
Of course, yeah.
And it is interesting because, you know, Bill Maher sees that very clearly. Obviously, I disagree with his Trump family will be president forever analysis. But this analysis is, I think, directly on the money here.
Yeah, all the insanity on the left has definitely pushed moderates into the Republican Party. So he's right on the money there.
Yeah.
Just out of necessity. It's like,
right.
What are you going to do?
Last few years, and there are bits of evidence that it is.
There was this whole video, maybe watch a clip of it, of oh my God, what's her name? Francesca, is that her name? The TYT woman that was arguing with Jank the other day.
Yep.
And she was all like, she had this whole stream where she's like, oh, we can't give an inch on trans issues because that's how fascism takes a hold in the country.
Yeah.
I was like, oh God.
I know you don't like Nancy Mace, but Nancy Mace is going to win on this. And I think a lot of women are on Nancy Mace's side. They just don't want to be as vocal as Nancy Mace. So I just
win
think,
on what, the bathroom thing? I mean, they already won on the bathroom. It's already
yeah, I guess they
passed. Yeah,
I guess they passed a law. Yeah, I think women-only spaces are going to be reclaimed, and the framing that Nancy Mace is doing. I don't know if you saw the clip that went viral where she's arguing with, I think it's Congresswoman Crockett, I think her last name is, where, yeah, she basically just completely calls her out for talking about marginalized people and then shitting all over women. And I think that's the framing that will stick with people. They're like, the trans rights are coming at the expense of women's rights, and women don't want to take a giant step backwards in their rights for men.
Right.
That framing works.
Yeah, no, I mean, my problem with Nancy Mace isn't ideological or that she's even wrong on specific issue. My problem with her is just, it's incredibly obvious if you were following this from the beginning that she was attacking this one trans congressperson in a very, I would say, an incredibly vicious way that was completely, like, logically pointless. She was not actually afraid of going into the bathroom. This person wasn't even going into the same bathroom as she was. Nancy Mace has her own private bathroom, and it was just 100% basically attacking this person in, I would say, a rather immoral fashion, just so that Nancy Mace could draw attention to herself as a candidate and just to increase her political power just by making herself more famous in the country. That was my issue with what she was doing, not even necessarily the ideology of what she's talking about.
Well, all of these issues, I mean, politicians are looking for an issue that they can blow up their status on.
Of course,
obviously.
yes,
yeah.
right,
I mean,
right.
But
and that's an easy one, especially because after the election, we're talking about that trans ad is what helped Trump win. So she very intelligently saw an opportunity to make a bunch of hay out of this.
Same thing Bill Maher is talking about here. Bill Maher is saying, look, this is like the free money analogy.
Right.
There's all this free money. There's all these women that are uncomfortable with trans women in their spaces. They perceive of them as men in their spaces, and they want someone to champion their perspective. So it's easy money to say, oh, there's all these people out here that want this. Well, let me deliver. Let me give them what they want. And Nancy Mace stepped in and gave them what they want. And I just think,
saw the free money on the table and scooped it all up.
It scooped it up. Exactly. Yep. So.
But I mean, in the aftermath of the loss, do you think
we've actually had a test case that can answer this question, although we don't have the full answer yet. But Seth Moulton, you're familiar?
Yeah.
Congressman?
Yeah.
Okay. He said after the election something which you and I and any reasonable person in America would find not only benign, but completely uncontroversial. He said, I don't want my I think
My
12-year-old.
daughter being run over by a by a man. Yes.
Yes, I don't want my 12-year-old daughter who played, whether it was at field hockey or
Right.
soccer or some girls' sport in school, to be on the field with a biological male
Right.
who could do a lot of damage. It's true. And immediately, I think it was his press secretary or maybe campaign manager or maybe both resigned.
Right. Yeah.
And there's where we are. That is the picture.
He's still okay, right? Like, so he hasn't been canceled, right? So
no, but hey, I don't. Maybe I missed it because I'm on vacation, but I don't hear him saying, "Good, let the door hit you in the ass."
Yeah,
You are what lost
that's the
us
necessary piece.
this last election.
Right.
And I'm glad you're going, and you're what's taking down this party, and you're nuts. And I'm here to say Democrats are not nuts.
Hey, have you seen Richie Torres speak?
Yes.
I looked up the Seth Moulton comment because I was curious about this. So he said, I have 2 little girls. I don't want them getting run over on a playing field by a male or formerly male athlete. But as a Democrat, I'm supposed to be afraid to say that.
True. Yep.
So listen, based Seth Moulton there for that one.
Yeah. People are fucking sick of this.
There is a waking up effect that's happening slowly, and all good things happen too slowly, but it is happening, which is nice to see.
Mm-hmm. What are you doing?
You said you were complaining that you hear my mouse clicking, so I'm trying to change my settings.
Oh, okay. Okay. You could do it when the video's playing.
I don't know. See, like I have, well, whatever. I don't hear that. I don't hear.
Let's not talk about it, but
you're crazy.
Well, I can see him being. I think
Crazy.
the audience can hear him too.
Crazy.
Give us some clicks. Anyway.
Did you hear anything?
No, you fixed it.
Well, no, I didn't change anything.
Anyway, let's continue. Come on. We're doing a show here.
I've had him on the show.
Oh, okay. So I missed that.
Yeah.
He seems great to me, and he seems like he's kryptonite to the far left.
I've seen him be great on some issues. Frankly, on the one-on-one, we had him once, and I liked him a lot. Then he was on.
This is on real time or on the podcast?
real time.
Uh-huh.
And then he was on the panel, and I thought he looked green, young, way too careful. But he's very young.
Yeah.
But I like him, and any Democrat who stands up for Israel, that takes guts.
Right.
And he did it, and does it, and I think he's got a big future. I think he's really smart.
I mean, he's black, Latino, gay, and wants nothing to do with identity politics, which is...
Well, it's easy to say when you're all that.
That's right, yeah. But I mean, that's like...
That's so true. I've never heard the guy speak or give a speech, so he could be in the same place as Kamala Harris. I don't know.
I've heard him
looks
talk.
good on paper.
No, he's good. In
Okay.
person, too.
Okay.
I haven't seen him on Bill Maher, so I don't know what he's talking about. I've seen him do clips where he says shit.
Okay.
So he seems fine.
That's like having the 20-sided dice.
It's like the rich guy who says money really doesn't matter. Yeah, because you have it.
Exactly. Yeah.
Well, listen, any Democrat politician that says Hassan sucks and writes a letter to Twitch telling them that they need to investigate kicking his son off the platform. That guy's a base politician.
That's what Richie Torres did, right?
It's what Richie Torres did. Yes,
yeah. Okay.
Yes. This, and also I haven't seen it yet. Maybe I'll watch it to see if it's worth covering. The other day, fucking Bernie Sanders, the commie in chief himself sat down with Hassan to have a conversation.
Did he really? Oh my God.
He did.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's so bizarre. Because, sitting down with a literal Hamas supporter.
Yeah, unfortunately, it's because the narrative after the election was, we need a Joe Rogan on the left. We need to reach out to social media people on the left. So all these retards reach out to Hassan, who is the largest left-wing streamer. They either don't know or they don't give a shit that he's the extremist, socialist, Hamas supporting, piece of shit.
Yeah, you need to work on the prohibition people are placing on people to go on Joe Rogan, right? Like, You don't have access to these platforms. Well, you do have access to the platforms. The only thing is your supporters don't want to see you on those platforms. So I would work on that. For some reason, there's like a taboo against it. You have to fight against that.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. It's just that's the environment we live in.
The
Okay,
last
let's jump ahead a
editorial
little bit.
that
Oh, okay.
I did.
the Democrats appeal to the voters as if they don't actually live here,
Yeah.
as if they don't actually go
Right,
out in the day.
Yeah, you don't
And
go to a CVS and have to get your shaving kit under lock and key. You know, a jailer comes by to get you some razor
that
blades.
too. But I meant racially.
Yeah.
They seem to think Americans live in this country where they go out in the day and they're seeing racism.
Right.
You know,
like cross burnings in front of the Starbucks. Yeah.
The Starbucks is saying we don't serve your kind to people. You know, it's just like we have issues to work out, but basically we're a fairly successful multiracial society. And
Well, here's I mean, maybe this won't be provocative to you, but it's in Wokistan, this is provocative. I think if we could just magically remove every racist from our society, virtually nothing would change of substance. It's like there'd still be the same number of murders in Chicago this weekend.
right.
There'd still be the same wealth inequality. There'd still be educational disparities. We still have lots of problems to solve. And we would recognize that for virtually nothing was the problem, that there was a racist standing in the way, anchoring that problem.
Yes, and of course there are people.
It's so complete. Both of what Bill and Sam said here is so fucking true. Oh my God. Preach. Just, you know, we're going to gaslight you that you live in this white supremacist racist society. The average person walks around, doesn't experience it, doesn't see it. That's why they have to keep believing like, oh, you know, the police are killing unarmed black men in record numbers. Like it's not things people experience in their own lives. They have to go on social media and see something framed in a very dishonest, specific way in order to come to that conclusion, or to be fed that conclusion and to believe it, essentially.
Yeah, it's such a waste of time and resources too, because they want to devote all this energy to fighting something that doesn't exist.
Right.
Yeah.
When it's actually going to make the problem worse. It's going to make people fucking racist.
Yeah.
Because it's all this like anti-white racism is just like growing out of fucking control. And what Sam said is also completely true. If you could snap your fingers and eliminate all the racist people, or just eliminate racism from everyone's minds, I don't think really anything in the country would change in terms of the problems we're facing as a country right now, anyway.
Yeah, the progressives would still call every moderate Republican a racist and claim that we live in a white supremacist patriarchy.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, unfortunate.
Listening to this now saying, how dare two white men talk about about it, let alone
to that I can say, go fuck yourself.
Me too, because we're speaking the truth.
Yeah.
You know, and of course, the people who know this better than anybody are black people. Like I've heard
who voted in record numbers for Trump, because
still not a lot.
No, but
just record
yeah. But
I mean, he got half of the male Latino vote.
Yeah.
But no, I mean, I've heard woke people say things like, you know, black people are hunted when they leave their house. That somebody has to stand up to that kind of thing, like the implication being by racists, as you're talking about, or the
racist cops. Yeah.
The racist cops. And it's true, there are some black people who are hunted when they leave their house. They're gang members in places who are being hunted by other gang members because they insulted their sneakers or something.
Right.
You know, or they're on their drug territory. We could make.
Oh my God! Everyone on the left is like losing their minds.
I know. It's true. I mean, there was just I forget. There's just a video I saw the other day, like some drive-by shooting, you know, some gang dispute, and it's like this always happens. It's so disgusting. Like a bunch of like random innocent people that are in the houses behind them end up getting fucking shot.
Yeah.
You know, the targets of the assassination don't even get hit, but like a bunch of random, you know, children are just like in a house get fucking shot at. It's just insane.
I was watching something and they were talking about these gang units, these law enforcement units monitor social media for different insults and slights from one gang member to another, because so many of the shootings they can trace back to something that was said on social media. So now
wow.
they're contacting them ahead of time to see if they'll like remove the post before it actually comes to, someone
Interesting.
driving by and shooting.
Right.
And I was like, holy shit. They're
It,
like
it,
completely monitoring them online.
it really shows you how ideology lowers your IQ like 30 points because if there was some like white racist KKK, organization or person that was like doing drive-bys and shooting at like black families,
Oh
you
my
know,
God.
like,
That would be
yeah,
on the news every day.
it would be on the news, 24/7. And like the political climate would be like, we have to move heaven and earth to stop, this tragedy, these racists from doing this stuff. It'd be like this huge deal. But then because it's like, so because number one, it's very common, unfortunately. And then number two, also because it doesn't align with the political ideology. If a black gang member drives by and shoots and kills a bunch of innocent black people, it's like, oh, well, we can't talk about that. We're not going to focus on that. We don't give a shit about that. Police are evil, ACAB.
Well, you're even accused of racism because you're criticizing their culture. Come on.
Right. Or you're making
Yeah.
it like, it's not even that. It's just like you're making
You're
it seem
creating
like
negative
it's
stereotypes.
right. Like it's somehow everything has to be the fault of white people. Like black people have no agency. Everything is the fault of white people. So,
Yeah,
and
it's very sad.
This is what happens if some bad thing happens or even a good thing happens and it doesn't fit into a left or right wing pre-established political narrative. If it doesn't line up, then that side just doesn't talk about it.
Yep. Because they can't even see it.
They can't see it, and then the pundits don't want to see it, and they don't want to put it out there because they know that their audience will get mad at them for doing it. So the audience captures, like keeping them in line, essentially.
Terrible.
So much progress in this racial area if we would just do three things. John McWhorter talks about them: end the drug war, better schools, and teaching kids something, especially in shitty schools where a lot of black kids go, and more daddies.
You know where John McWhorter talks about this? You know where John McWhorter lays out this argument?
No. Well, I mean, I've heard him say it in multiple places on his own stream.
He says it in the book Woke Racist.
Oh, no. Right.
Exactly. Yeah, the book that has to be redefined if you believe in the woke right nonsense. So it is kind of funny. I'm glad to hear Bill Maher has read John McWhorter's book.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a great book.
Yeah,
family.
That's also a completely incendiary, Candace Owens level point.
What is she saying?
Just putting the onus on single parent households. I mean, I think it's something like 70% of the births in the black community are to single moms, right?
And she's
just like, that's your fucking problem, fellas. And
I see.
Candace is black, obviously,
Right.
so she doesn't quite have the problems that you and I are now going to inherit as a result of this conversation. But
it's so weird because you can get people on the left to acknowledge that people who have a two-parent household, children that have a two-parent household, are at an extreme advantage, but you can't get them to realize that children of single parents are at a disadvantage by comparison. They won't go there.
Yeah, because it goes against the narrative. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
They're like, oh, there's nothing wrong with single moms. Single moms can raise kids just as well as two-parent households. But two-parent households also have white privilege.
Yeah. Did you see?
Like,
yeah.
What?
Well, and I think not just having multiple people in the house, but having, it doesn't have to be a man and woman, but having a more masculine and a more feminine archetype
role model is very
important.
Yeah.
And role model is important. Yeah.
Yeah, that is important. But two people, obviously, the world is the buddy system. You're going to be far more financially stable. That financial stability turns into academic stability for your kids. It's like, it's so obvious, but you can't talk about these basic things. Like him just citing the stat that's 70% of the black community is born to single moms is like, oh my God, what are you doing? You're creating negative stereotypes. Shut up.
Exactly.
Don't think about it.
Did you see the Candace Owens clip from the other day?
I did not. No.
She Candace Owens was on some podcast and she said that she thinks dinosaurs are fake and gay.
No way.
That's the word she used. She said they were fake and gay, and that she said that evolution, the theory of evolution, is some kind of conspiracy to destroy Christianity, and that dinosaurs are part of that.
What
And
what is happening to Candace Owens?
And I love her, and her reasoning for this is hilarious at the end of it. She's like, I mean, why is it that only paleontologists find dinosaur bones?
Right.
Because
Because they're the ones looking for them, perhaps. I mean,
I was like, I don't get it. When I'm walking around in my city, my asphalt city, everywhere where like everything's paved over, I'm just wondering why I'm not tripping over dinosaur bones. I'm like buried in rock in the fucking desert. Like, what the fuck are you talking about?
yeah, they go on explorations around the world, find fossil-rich locations, dig deep into the ground. We get their brushes out.
Yes, and actually, I didn't even know this until I looked at it because I was curious about this. Something like 80% of all dinosaur bones are found in the same 3 locations in the world.
Right.
And it's not because all dinosaurs live there. It's because those are very specific conditions that make it easier for fossilized remains to become fossilized in the first place. Because 99% of like animals that die do not become fossilized. They just fucking die and rot away. And also there's locations where once they become fossilized, it's like easy to find them because it's some, desert somewhere that doesn't have a lot of weathering. And also like the way the rock formations occur, it makes it easier to like know what layer of, earth you're digging in to find, the dinosaurs in, because everything gets fucking buried.
Yes. Yeah.
So ridiculous.
Why does Candace Owens always find excuses for Hitler? Because she's looking for him. That's why. Right?
Yeah.
Makes perfect sense.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, I'm surprised she didn't bring the Jews into it somehow. Somehow it's the Jews' fault for dinosaurs. But
yeah. What? At this point, it's got to be. I mean, it's a troll. She's turning into Andy Kaufman before our eyes.
That's what I tweeted out about. I said, I literally cannot tell if this is all a grift or if her brain has become so rotted by the fake news that she doesn't know like how to trust information anymore. So she just grabbed the Bible and is like, this is my buoy. This is the one thing I can trust. I'm just going to believe the Bible and nothing else.
Right. Yeah, I've been there before. I was a total Bible believer, so I understand that ethos. Like, this is the book. This is the book with all the information you need. You just got to decode it. So maybe she's going on that path. It's interesting to me because it seems normal for me to be at that place when I'm like 12, right? I'm raised in a religious household. We read the Bible regularly. We go to church and stuff like that. What is she, like 40 now?
I think she's a little younger than that. I think she's like 30 something, but
okay. I don't know. Maybe she's got like, well, sometimes people turn to the Bible when they have like drug problems or something like that. So,
okay. Yeah. Maybe.
I'm not saying that she has drug problems. I'm just saying,
it would explain
maybe she's got vices that she's like, I need to deal with. Anyway, you want to jump forward to Jordan Peterson or?
But it's obviously so, right? It's like it's just not.
And it wasn't always so. It wasn't always so in the black community. Yeah. So something did change.
Yeah.
I think some people think that it was always thus, or that maybe it's even gotten better. But no.
This is important because a lot of the blame, I think, goes to the progressive community, unfortunately, trying to do good and not doing good.
Yes, yes. Well, they talk about that, which is interesting, yeah.
That number was not nearly that high.
That did get worse, yeah.
And then, so maybe we should just look at that. But I think that's kind of anathema to the left because it implicates like the Great Society and
my feeling now is that as a heuristic, I just think that any mention of race in virtually any context is almost always, these are all these modifiers, counterproductive.
And paradoxically, they want to make everything about race.
Right. Yeah.
Everything's about race, but don't mention it.
There's no one who cares as much about race as progressives in American society, other than if you migrate right to look for your colleague in this racial fixation, you have to go all the way to the Ku Klux Klan. all the way to white supremacists and neo-Nazis. Those are the people who care about race as much as the woke progressives.
It's a little like how much Republicans care about gay. You know, some of them think about gayness a lot. You almost have to be a gay man to think about it as much. It's kind of the same.
Yeah. Although I think that's probably not so much the case. I think we've won. I feel like we did win that battle, and that's not getting walked back. But who knows? I mean, there are theocrats who are still waiting to win that argument. But
well, Trump.
Okay.
I do agree that I think they won on the gay issue.
Yeah, 100%. They won on the gay issue. Yeah, I don't agree with Bill on that one. I mean, but I agree 100% with the whole. To find people that care about race the way that woke people care about race, you literally have to go to the white nationalists.
What if they ban TikTok and wokeness just takes a huge nosedive? And 10 years from now, everyone determines that was the origin of wokeness.
That would be hilarious.
Yeah, fucking A.
Well,
so many of these young people are addicted to TikTok, and they're the craziest on the woke stuff.
I think a lot of these large social cultural changes are like multiple things just happening at the same time. So, I mean, it's possible you could have TikTok being banned plus, the left blaming wokeness for Trump's second win. Like you could have multiple things happening simultaneously.
Yeah.
Create that outcome. But then obviously, people will look at it back because it's easier to just say like, oh, well, it was just TikTok. Though
it looks like TikTok is going to go dark, which I'm pretty excited about.
Yes. It was funny because so there's a story, if you guys are not on social media, you probably haven't seen this, is a story where all these people that are on TikTok that are mad about TikTok going away decided to join some other Chinese social media platform that's like literally translates into, it's called Red Note, but it translates into the Little Red Book, which was the name of like Mao's communist like manifesto book or something. It's totally batshit crazy. And it's so funny because yesterday they were all bragging about it. They're like, oh, you banned TikTok? Well, now I'm going to join and they were saying it like sarcastically, the evil socialist platform. Like they're all like, jacking themselves off, patting themselves on the back for joining like this Chinese platform. And then today I see all these screenshots of people that join that platform, and a bunch of Chinese people on the platform are like, whoa, Westerners, don't bring all your like gay LGBT shit on our platform. And they're like, whoa, what? I didn't think there'd be like homophobia and transphobia on this platform. What's going on here?
Yeah, they're total idiots.
I was
they're
like,
total idiots. Yeah.
Okay. What's the reaction going to be when these fucking people realize that China is pushing, like really heavily pushing LGBT stuff on TikTok to Americans, but completely censors it and doesn't promote it at all on their own Chinese platforms? What does that mean? That's kind of an interesting thing, right?
None of them know TikTok is actually banned in China. Like they have a completely different version of TikTok that is non-addictive,
right?
And frankly, educational and boring.
Yes, exactly.
This is perhaps there's some serious caveats here, perhaps, but generally speaking, everything that's wrong with anti-Semitism is a symptom of this larger problem where everyone left of center can't figure out how to defend Western values from.
I couldn't agree more.
Yeah,
absolutely. It all springs from that.
Yeah,
that somehow Western values themselves are tainted again because, to me, the root of this is the kids don't know anything because they don't teach anything in school. So if you don't know anything, what's the one thing you can know? Black and white.
Yeah.
Literally black and white.
Yeah.
That's as deep as they get. So in that world where there's black and white bad, black good, one's the oppressor, one's the oppressed, everything has to fit into that. And Israel, rich, white, even though like half of them are not white.
Literally the only black people are Ethiopian Jews fighting for the IDF in that context.
That's true. But I mean,
on the Western thing, which is 100% true, like I agree that children are, school sucks and people adopt the very simple black and white frame. But I think it's more than just that, like people aren't taught anything. I think that's incorrect. I don't think it's that kids aren't taught anything. I think it's that kids are being taught misinformation. And we had this very slow slide into the left with education because, for personality reasons and for other reasons, just more and more and more teachers became more left wing, and more of the actual little socialists became more and more teachers and started, infiltrating all the institutions and slowly pulling, the left down the pathway of like America is bad, the West is bad, America bad. And I think a lot of teachers are just like teaching this dog shit to their kids. And then, TikTok, it gets repeated by China, obviously, and by those other fucking idiot socialists teaching, all these other kids that America is bad, all for the goal of destroying America, all for the goal of destroying liberalism.
Yeah. We are the superpower in the world. They want to knock us down a peg so that they can thrive at our expense.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. It sucks.
Okay, let me jump ahead.
Well, look, and I think they completely understand the moral psychology of it, the religious psychology of it. I do. I think like they are instrumental in creating these ideas that people just they see as gospel.
Right.
Like this idea that the biggest problem in America is racism. Like, I don't think that's remotely true, but you hear, obviously it's promoted on TikTok. You hear Putin say it. Like, Putin talks about how our big problem is racism and we're all
Right.
racists. It's like,
Right.
what?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. So look, they're gaslighting everybody, and the dum-dums fall for it. They believe
Yep.
it. So,
Every time. Yeah.
and confirmation bias takes over, and they see every little interaction. You know, if they're black or brown, they see every little interaction that somebody has some conflict with them as leading to race. It's because of race. That's what it is. Yeah. When the
Right.
conflict is just, no, you're an asshole.
Right.
Right?
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. So I think this is the part you have marked as the Jordan Peterson part.
Okay.
He doesn't care. He's never cared. He has no reason to care because he's on the right.
Either do we.
Well, no, but he never experienced this whiplash of like, wait a minute.
They're talking about oh my God, what's his name? That British guy.
Not sure.
Who's always defending Israel
I don't
in
know.
the West. Oh my God, what's
The great thing about Douglas is he has
Douglas
Oh,
Murray?
Douglas Murray.
Yeah.
Okay.
he
Douglas Murray
doesn't
is
care.
great.
He's never
Yeah. Usually.
cared. He has no reason to care because he's on the right.
Either do we.
Well, no, but he never experienced this whiplash of like, wait a minute, these people who
Right.
understand everything that I understand and also subscribe to the New York Times now hate me.
Right.
He never had any of that.
Yeah. Same. And Jordan Peterson, I would add to that list. I don't feel like
Jordan's got some
What?
user interface issues that
Oh.
I mean, his.
What is that? What does that mean?
I like Jordan a lot, but
Me too.
as a person. I mean, but Jordan is definitely out there in not quite Trumpistan, but he's definitely Trump adjacent and messaging into the. He's in Conspiristan. He's talking to he's out there with Russell Brand and people who are talking to the contrarian audience all the time. And
Well, what's something he says that I would object to? No, I know. I had him here for the book
it's been a while since I watched his stuff.
Okay.
But I mean, well, first of all,
Okay, so this is where everyone cuts it, right? So it looks like Sam Harris is a fucking idiot, even though he immediately goes on to answer the question. So that is completely dishonest. Those clips are completely dishonest because they're out of context. He does answer the question about Jordan Peterson, which obviously we will weigh in on. So
he's genuinely he's religious in a way that's hard to
Oh
pin
no,
down.
I had him. I had him here. We talked about the Bible for 2 hours because that's what his book is about.
Right.
So we don't agree on that. And if he'd voted for Trump, we don't agree on that.
Yeah, I don't. Well, he's actually said some critical things about Trump, so he's not. As has Douglas, so they're not all in on that front. But
So his problem with Jordan Peterson is just the religious stuff. Sam Harris, his ultimate goal for Jordan Peterson is to get Jordan Peterson to admit that he doesn't believe, like he's not a biblical literalist.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
He
Right.
wants him to come out and say all the stuff that Jordan Peterson's audience believes is bullshit.
Hmm.
Like, is it? I think Jordan Peterson's fascinating because Jordan Peterson is like he's working his way up the food chain. He's like Sam Harris is one of the famous atheists, but obviously Richard Dawkins is like much bigger than Sam Harris in that world. And he's like, I want to have conversations with Richard Dawkins because Richard Dawkins is an evolutionary biologist, and all of my ideas are evolutionarily thinking.
Right.
So I
Their
can make some
conversation didn't
headway
go that
there.
well, though.
No, it didn't. And I wonder if Sam and Richard Dawkins talk behind the scenes, just talk smack about Jordan Peterson.
Right.
It's so annoying because it is their bias against religion that is standing in the way of them embracing the kind of concepts, which I mean, I Jordan Peterson, I think is talking from a very scientific perspective, and I do think he's winning a lot of religious people over to a more moderate position on biblical literalism. So and I think that's a win. That's a total win.
Um, I don't know. Yeah, maybe he is. Um,
Well, if you
I
had a bunch of religious people in the past that were just they denied evolution and now they
Mhm.
support evolution because of Jordan Peterson, that's a win, right?
That is a win. I don't know if
Yeah.
that's occurred. I mean, that would be great
Okay.
if that is
Well,
occurred.
not with Candace Owens, obviously.
Well, obviously, it hasn't worked with Candace Owens. But no, I wonder if a lot of, I mean, I think Jordan Peterson has two issues that like Sam Harris, other people react to. First of all, it's just Twitter, for whatever reason, makes
Oh,
people's brain
yes.
turns to mush for
Yep.
some reason. And Jordan Peterson has a lot of bad tweets, or he did. I think he's kind of eased off on it, but there was a time period where it was just like, what the fuck? And then I think that's just, it goes back, so much of it, I think, goes back to that 4 hour conversation between Sam Harris and Jordan Peterson about like defining the words truth. And Jordan Peterson, I think, too often plays this kind of linguistic game about like defining words in this very specific way, which I do think is somewhat hypocritical because a big critique that he rightfully levies at the left, or that the socialists specifically, is like using word games to sort of jump past arguments. Where I feel like, and I don't know why, but I feel like whenever Jordan Peterson talks to atheists, he gets caught in doing that same exact thing. And usually only when he's talking to atheists does he get caught in doing this kind of game.
Yeah, their disagreement is over basically fact claims in opposition to narrative, and obviously Sam thinks the facts are more important than the narrative, and Jordan Peterson thinks narrative is more important than facts because you can't really contextualize, like, facts must be contextualized within a narrative, therefore that's why they are prime. So
Right.
I
But
mean, I get that
yeah.
disagreement, but that you can have that disagreement from a scientific perspective. I just
Yes.
wish that Sam Harris would engage from that scientific perspective and stop trying to engage from some sort of theological perspective, like he's hiding something.
Yeah, I agree with that. But in terms of the Jordan Peterson conversation, like if he just laid out what you said with that language, then they could have a conversation about that. But like 2 hours of that 4 hour original conversation, I know they had other ones, but 2 hours of that original 4 hour conversation or longer was just on like trying to even get to that point because he kept trying to use the word truth in this way that is not used, and that Sam Harris and most other people wouldn't feel comfortable using truth to mean narrative or metaphorical truth.
Of course.
Instead of just,
Yeah.
instead of Jordan Peterson just saying like, well, here's the concept I'm trying to work with. You know, we need a name for it. Let's call it metaphorical truth. Let's call it whatever you feel comfortable with so that we can have a conversation about the concept as opposed to having a 4 hour conversation about what mouth sounds to use to denote the concept.
Metaphorical truth, though, does denigrate the religious community that believe these claims from a factual perspective. So I understand why Jordan Peterson is hesitant to talk about it from that
We'll
perspective.
call
And so much of
archetypical
it is,
truth or something. You know, whatever word you want to use. You know,
well, I mean,
spiritual truth, divine truth. I don't know. You could figure out some label they don't trigger people, I guess.
no, because the concept is, I mean, once you define it, that's where the trigger comes in. You're
Right.
literally talking about believing something regardless of the truth value, giving
Right.
you some sort of evolutionary advantage.
Right. Right.
So, And everyone wants to believe, whether it's true or not. They want to believe what they believe is true, right?
Yeah,
Nobody
of
wants to
course.
believe things that are untrue. So
Well, they
that's
don't want to
where that's
believe what
the
they believe is
rub.
untrue. Yeah.
But and this is why they constantly go back to this. Like Sam Harris is just, he believes Jordan Peterson is gaslighting his audience, and
Mhm.
like, and he just wants him to admit, look, you're fucking gaslighting your audience.
Right.
Drives him crazy. Drives Sam Harris crazy.
Right.
Yeah. He sees Jordan Peterson as a bad person because of it.
Well, I think
Look, and that's why he's saying this.
he doesn't say it directly. My intuition about what's going on here is that it feels like Sam is saying that he doesn't like that Jordan Peterson is too permissive of people that Sam Harris thinks are just out and out bad actors on the right. And he thinks
Mhm.
Jordan Peterson is too permissive of not calling them out or criticizing them.
Well, I
'Cause I
agree
think
with
he
that
brings up
to some extent.
I know I do agree with it to some extent, but I mean I think that's a lot of where Sam Harris's animating energy is coming from here. Because I think he brings up Russell Brand in this conversation as being one of those
Right.
people. But
Yeah. Yeah. Well, he makes some accusations about Jordan Peterson that I don't think are fair. So we'll
right,
get to him.
No, I mean, so what I've noticed with a lot of people, I would not put Douglas in this category, but I think I would put Jordan there, is there's this phenomenon of audience capture, which is a phrase. I don't know if it's in your brain, but I mean,
Sure.
it's a Eric Weinstein came up with this phrase that now everyone uses because it's so useful. But it's just names this phenomenon of people who, especially in alternative media, who detect a signal in their audience, like the person who starts talking about,
Yeah.
Did Jeffrey Epstein really kill himself? And they all of a sudden they've done 40 podcasts on that topic because that's what their audience wants, and they've monetized that idea, and
you see it happen.
You see that happen to people.
Yeah, absolutely. And you see it also in broadcast.
Right.
People like Nicole Wallace, who I like,
Right.
but she was a pretty hard right Bush Republican, and then she went over to MSNBC, and at first it's just like, well, we all hate Trump. There are good Republicans who hate Trump, and we love them for it. Liz Cheney and Mitt Romney, okay, blah, blah, blah. Chris Christie, go down the list. But then it slowly becomes every issue. And you're like, okay, maybe it's a sincere conversion.
Right.
Or maybe it's like, I see who signs my paycheck every week. And
So your opinion about guns and climate change and like
right.
all
That's
changed. All those dials got turned.
Suddenly she's like, brown people.
Yeah.
When did you ever care about brown people?
I think I have noticed that. I don't know if I've noticed on Fox News. I don't know if they get like a lot of lefties, but I have 100% noticed it on MSNBC with Michael Steele, with I forget the guy's name, the guy that was John McCain's campaign manager, Steve Schmidt.
Oh yeah, Steve Schmidt.
And that woman that was the creator of the Lincoln Project, who was on that panel with Trump's press secretary.
I can't remember her name.
And it's like it
Sarah
is weird.
something.
Yeah, it is very weird. And I don't know if it's just a money issue. I don't know if it's just that you're surrounded by like people that you call your colleagues. Humans are very, very pack animals, and you can see like I think it's just very difficult for most people to be surrounded by a pack of people and colleagues and to not just get drawn and sucked into that direction of whatever their moral ethic is.
Well, look, it comes down to not wanting to offend your colleagues and friends. So, I mean, you kind of want to start tailoring your speech just to be non-offensive, which is completely normal.
Well, it's like on MSNBC, I think that's happening. And I was saying on MSNBC, like, obviously they're like, okay, we need to, it's not like CNN where you have Scott, that Scott, I forget his last name, that Scott guy, and some of the other people that they'll have a right wing and they'll go on the panel to argue. On MSNBC, they have these people that are on the right, supposedly, or were on the right, and they specifically like want it to be like, oh, this is some area of agreement. But it's like if you're only talking about the area of agreement, it seems like people just get sucked down a pathway of like, oh, I can't actually disagree at any point. Like there's like definitely feels like on MSNBC, there's a restrictive hand that is like you are not allowed to call out the left here
Right.
unless it goes along with the narrative. It's weird. There was this clip. I want to come back to Jordan Peterson in a second here because I don't agree with Jordan Peterson being audience captured. But there was a Sam Cedar clip where he played a clip of Chris Hayes, who was criticizing Israel, killing too many innocent Palestinians and all this other stuff. And Sam Cedar's sitting here like, oh my God, can you believe on MSNBC you're saying all this stuff? And I'm like,
That was a
what the
good
f-
Sam Cedar there.
thank you. And I was like, what the fuck is he talking about? Like, this is how delusional the online left is. He thinks that MSNBC has been like some rah Israel fucking network. Like, what?
Right.
There's like they've been criticizing Israel like way before any of the current conflict came out. Chris Hayes has been super critical of it. All have been super critical of Israel. He's been 100% on board with all that narrative. And Sam Cedar's sitting here like he thinks it's so crazy that suddenly Chris Hayes is against Israel. I was like, okay.
Right. He's just
But
out of touch with the content.
yeah, because they have to create a narrative that they are different. They're speaking truth to power. You should watch Sam Cedar. You should watch the internet left because they're giving you some piece of information that the lamestream left won't give you because they're all bought and paid by the establishment.
Don't look.
I mean,
That's what we do. Don't make fun of that. That's true.
yeah, no, but
it is
but
like mainstream media is fucking dog shit.
it is. But Sam Cedar, 99% of Sam Cedar's talking points are all the safest talking points that could exist
From the mainstream
in
media.
any
right.
mainstream media publication.
Right. Totally.
So it's just totally absurd for him to say this.
He's not going to come out and praise Nancy Mace.
Right. Yeah. He's not going to, come. I mean, fucking, Jank and Anna like pushing back on the trans women in sports and locker room stuff. That's like more against the mainstream than anything Sam Cedar's fucking talking about.
Yeah, totally.
But
yes.
Regarding Jordan Peterson thing, I don't, and this is obviously we're all trying to read people's minds here. So this is my own bias, being more favorable to Jordan Peterson. I don't think Jordan Peterson got audience captured in terms of why maybe his views have shifted. Or at least I wouldn't throw it directly at that. I mean, obviously he had a very big health scare that could have influenced people, but he also had like 2 to 3 years of the most reprehensible, vile, insane, lying, dishonest attacks against him by so many mainstream media outlets. I've never seen a person wrongly slandered to the level that I've seen Jordan Peterson wrongly slandered in like 2016, 2017, 2018 when he first came onto the stage. And that's got to affect that's got to affect your worldview.
Yeah. You lose a lot of faith in humanity once you realize people are just they're going to lie about you with impunity and not even really care. like not even really care about the truth or how it affects you. So
yes,
that is completely demoralizing.
Yes. Yeah, it was very, very so I think you have to put all that into account. That's going to make you just so distrustful of the mainstream if you get attacked the way that Jordan Peterson got attacked wrongly, which was insane.
Is it audience capture though to understand your audience and not want to offend them, to go out of your way not to offend them? I like there are certain issues that you want to be persuasive on, and as soon as you start offending people, like there's no way you're going to persuade them to your point of view. So
it depends what you mean by that. If you mean like you have a view and that most people in your audience don't have that view, so you're trying to think of a way to phrase it or to be persuasive to the audience to not offend them. I don't think that's not audience capture. Audience capture would be like, I have a view on something, my audience isn't going to like it, so I'm not going to talk about it. That's audience capture.
I conceptualize there's basically like two broad categories of audience out there, especially in the political realm. It's the audience that we're going to talk about our political opposition and create a giant negative stereotype about that opposition that's completely fictitious and just talk about it all the time and just completely like we're not thinking of our political opposition as someone we can persuade. Like we're just going to talk incendiary shit and our goal is to like offend all of them as much as possible, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then there is an audience that you're going to be conscious of the political environment and you're not going to want to straw man. You're going to want to engage these people and you're going to want to be somewhat persuasive to them in the idea that you can win them over to your political side. So, and I think obviously we're in the latter category, like we're trying to be more persuasive, but there are like David Pakman is the epitome of the, I'm just going to like, they barely even talk about left wing stuff. I mean, all of his videos are about the right wing and the stereotype of them. Like that's what people want to hear. They want to hear about how right wingers are fucking evil.
Right.
Yeah. So, I mean, they're like, they barely even talk about what are our personal goals? What do we find interesting? What do we care about? So look, and I think Jordan Peterson is more in the latter category. And I think Sam Harris is in the former category. I think Sam Harris is really like, there's this stereotype of religious people. They're stupid. They believe in nonsense. And his audience wants to hear them being denigrated. That's their enemy. That's what they're focused on. They believe the world would be a better place without religion, and we need to shame religious people into not being religious, which is hilarious because I think it's a totally losing strategy. But I do think Jordan Peterson is more, I'm going to engage with religious people from a more scientific perspective, and I'm going to try to be persuasive with them. And I think he wins. I think he does. He is more engaging. So
I agree.
Look, and it's weird because I do think a lot of these shows like Breaking Points where they're like, we're going to put a left winger and a right winger together. I think I guess maybe that's kind of a third category because you do have, like, obviously, let's look at Breaking Points with Sauger and Crystal, right? Crystal's going to talk about the left wing perspective. And Sauger is going to talk about the right wing perspective, and Sauger's going to make it a point not to strawman the right, and Crystal's not going to strawman the left. Maybe I guess maybe they are not really attacking the other side as much, creating some sort of negative stereotype. Like I don't often hear Crystal. Well, I don't know. Maybe she does talk about the right wing. I notice it a lot in Jank. Like Jank constantly. Like most of the time when I listen to TYT. Jank is not talking about his side. He's talking about right wingers and describing right wingers to people. And I'm just like, that's a wholly inaccurate description.
Right.
It doesn't win. Like, I don't know that they're going to win a lot of right wingers over to their audience because of that.
Right. Probably not. And was like, I think it's harder to create a bunch of straw man in the Sauger and Crystal situation because they're like you have
because Sauger's sitting right there.
They're both sitting there. Though they do it. I mean, I just saw him. Maybe we'll watch it. They have this debate. They have a discussion that part of it is pretty spicy and interesting. But they're arguing about the LA fires and how DI plays into that at all. Yeah, it's kind of funny. They got she gets very very offended by the concept of it, and he's like, well.
Yeah, look, and it is tough. I mean, people are much easier to offend than they are to not offend, right?
Right.
So, but this is just to bring it back to the Jordan Peterson claim here that Jordan Peterson is audience captured. I mean, that really depends upon your definition of audience capture, right? I don't know if Jordan Peterson not wanting to offend his religious audience because he thinks he can teach them something about life and science and narrative and stuff like that. I don't know if I'd call that audience capture. That's just trying to be persuasive.
I'd wager Sam Harris means audience, even though I disagree with him in terms of Jordan Peterson being audience capture. I'd wager he means audience capture the way I mean it, which
Right.
is not you trying to be persuasive to your audience, but you holding back on something you truly believe because you know it's going to affect your financial or your popularity negatively.
Right.
So, and this is the last part that was a little interesting. I think this is where Sam Harris talks about how his relationship with Elon Musk
Oh, this is
degraded,
great.
which
This
is
is
kind of
great.
interesting.
Yeah, totally.
The people who gave us that are people who are in very good standing with Elon, who Elon will talk to them in Twitter Spaces and
Right.
give them.
What he said the people that gave us Pizzagate are very good standing, which I guess he's talking about
Michael Cernovich, right?
Cernovich. I don't know if anyone else in that sphere was Pizzagate related, but
the mic and boost them and just
Right.
high five them, and he knows, I've pointed out how crazy these people are to him. These people will send him a clip from my podcast or some other podcast, maybe this podcast, maybe we'll do it here, right? Making it seem like I've said
I think they did, actually. I do think Elon was sharing the clip that was clipped out of context
he was
about Jordan Peterson. Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is hilarious.
opposite of what I said in context. Like they sent him one where I seemed to be saying that I didn't care about the chaos at the border, whereas I have exactly Elon's view of the border, and in context you could hear that. But they'll send the opposite, and Elon will react to it. He doesn't have time to listen to the podcast, obviously, so he'll just react to the clip, saying, Sam Harris is a total moron, right? Like it was something like that, but amplify this to millions of people. And I will email him and say, Elon, you're being gamed by right-wing trolls who gave us Pizzagate. This is not what I said in context, right? And he will tell me to go fuck myself. And he knows.
But he read the email.
Oh yeah, he will respond to the email. Go fuck yourself. He does not care.
This is so funny. Look, as much as I don't like Sam Harris, I totally agree with Sam Harris here that Elon should be more aware of the fact that he has this power over people, which he doesn't really seem to care about, right?
See with Elon, and I've always said this, I don't know. It's hard for me to tell because Elon's obviously smart on some level, very on when I say some level, I mean he's run all these successful businesses. He's the richest fucking man in the world, so he's got to be smart. And so, I'm a little bit more on the situation of okay, I feel like he's doing this for some kind of manipulative purpose, as opposed to he's just become ideological or audience capture or something. When he tweets out all the shit that he tweets out, which is a lot of it is obviously fake or bullshit or just throwing, red meat to a specific political base here.
He's defaming someone in public who used to be a friend. So, it was, and this is why we're no longer friends. So, the guy is snorting ketamine and on Twitter all day long.
There is no defending that, and I wouldn't try.
Yeah.
But,
and that's not to dispute anything you said about it. He's the greatest entrepreneur of his generation. I think that's not disputable. But there's no reason to ignore the downside of his personality and the way he's treating people.
But also to take advantage of the upside, I guess, is that's the complication of human life. Do we live?
Oh, okay, that's the end of that, but.
Right. Yeah, obviously Elon has thrown his lot in with Trump, and Sam Harris probably has written him long emails about how Trump is a terrible person, right? So Elon is there's probably more going on here than Sam is mentioning. So
yeah. So
Elon shouldn't be doing that stuff.
No, I shouldn't. So it's great we can watch it really quick.
Oh my God, fucking how dare you.
I found the clip that he was talking about. I'm assuming it's what he's talking about. I see a clip that Mike Cernovich retweeted of Sam Harris. And he said, Sam Harris is a basement dwelling loser. Has he been to the border? No, he doesn't leave his bunker. I never understood how he had an audience. Was always an obvious midwit. His meditation app was just ripping off Eastern practices. He didn't create anything. Booger eater.
No way. He called him a booger eater?
He called them a booger eater. And
Oh
then
my God, that's devastating.
it's so weird. I find it devastating. And then Elon didn't reply to the Cernovich post. He replied to the post that Cernovich was retweeting.
Cernovich said that or Elon said that?
Cernovich said that.
Okay, I thought Elon said that.
No.
That
Cernovich
makes
said
more sense.
Yeah. Elon Musk didn't reply to Cernovich, but he did reply to the clip that Cernovich had retweeted, and he said in it, Sam Harris's mind has melted into goo. Maybe he had an aneurysm. So I haven't listened to this clip. It's funny because I found the video it was from, and I think I found the correct part of the video. I didn't realize it's from a David Pakman conversation.
I know, you're killing me here.
Which I know we watched because I vaguely remember this. I don't really remember what was talked about in it. So I think this is that was like a 2-minute clip. So I'm curious to see what exactly was triggering Elon here and whether Sam's characterization of it is correct. So let's see.
Sense of whether this slice of the left as it currently stands,
Hold on, let's go back a sec.
that there's a significant contingent of this left that is going to take an action in November, whether it's not voting or voting for Trump, I don't know why they would do that, that would actually make the very problem they've identified worse by their own evaluation.
Are they talking about 2024 election or 2020 election?
They're talking about the 2024 election with people on the left who are saying they would vote against Biden/Harris. I don't know when this was,
right?
Because of their because Biden and Harris are too supportive of Israel.
Okay.
Do you have a sense of whether this slice of the left as it currently stands really might do that in November in an election?
Well, I don't. I mean, I would share your astonishment if they thought Trump were better on this particular issue. If this is their hobby horse, right? If support for Israel is the thing they want to erode, well, I mean, Trump, granted, he is an isolationist, but his support for Israel has been fairly reflexive, and despite a few hiccups he's had with Netanyahu, he's been much less critical of Netanyahu than Biden has been, or that any Democrat has been. So yeah, I wouldn't know what to expect of Trump in a second administration.
This is where the clip on Twitter starts.
Okay.
Just looking
around Israel. I mean, I would assume he would support it, but the isolationist noises are at cross purposes with that. I mean, I view him as a moral lunatic who really thinks only of himself. So it's hard to predict exactly what he would do. But it's a.
Do you like when he says moral lunatic? They have to cut the David Pakman nodding his head.
That's just.
Funny. I thought it's hilarious.
He's just this singularly selfish. It's hard.
Mm-hmm.
It's hard.
I mean, I'm much more worried, frankly, that Biden will suffer an erosion of support for for other reasons on the kind of the opposite side of the political continuum, among independents and others who are worried about the southern border, for instance. I mean, you only need to see a few videos coming from the southern border and a few, arguably uncharitable framings of those videos by propagandists from the other side. I mean, someone like Tucker Carlson claiming that, look, this is Biden's policy, and then he'll show you people by the thousands coming into coming across the border without any sign that we know who they are, we can do anything about it. That I think a lot of people really care about, and especially in the aftermath of October 7th, right? The idea that we have a border that we just can't police, that we're not inclined to police, and and millions of people are coming to the country, and we have no idea who they are, but we know at this point that they're not just Latin Americans looking for work, they're people from all over the world, and coming in here for who knows what purpose. You spin that up into a conspiracy theory or just a constrained fear for the future. That's the issue I think he has to get a handle on more than than signaling that it's daylight between him and Netanyahu, where I think there should be daylight between him and Netanyahu, because I think Netanyahu is a fairly Trumpian and self-serving character at this point. You know, he is somebody who is at least in part culpable for the problem Israel finds itself in.
It's so interesting that just because he uses the word conspiracy theory and talks about the border, that's like mished together into this. He thinks the border security thing is a conspiracy theory.
Right. Well, I would be curious because, like, at least based on that clip, like, he doesn't like the. I don't know what Sam Harris. I would be shocked if Sam Harris is just like, yeah, there's no border problem, just based on.
No, of course, yeah.
I
Look,
would
he
be
doesn't
shocked.
say that at all.
Right, but I can understand wrongly why someone would just see that clip because he doesn't really go. He's only kind of portraying one side of it. Maybe it's because he's talking to David Pakman and he's just trying to be persuasive to an audience, or maybe it's just because it's where his mind is in terms of the context of the question. But this is how, you know, the media training unfortunately works, is that you talk about, you know, one half of an opinion that you have, and you just don't get the second half in that part of the conversation, and everyone runs with it and says, oh my God.
Yeah. Yeah. Interesting.
So I guess this was the clip that this is the clip that Elon looked at and was like, crazy. And it, you know, it is funny now in retrospect that Elon looked at this clip and he got so mad at Sam Harris, and yet you know, Elon had his own, you know, backlash from his H-1B visa conversation caused all this controversy for him. So
Elon went to the border, though. He did that live stream at the border and kind of investigated himself. So, so that's probably why he was upset and perceived this as Sam Harris thinking the border was no problem.
Yeah. Well, he's been really
funny
pushing the immigration stuff like super hardcore. Elon has, so that's why I just thought it was, you know, I don't know why he was surprised by the H-1B backlash.
It's funny that he calls the Trump a moral lunatic and talks about his selfishness in the context of Biden still running for president at this point, because one can make the argument that Biden was also singularly selfish. So all these politicians are singularly selfish. I think it's kind of ubiquitous in this realm. We need to build a system that forces selfish people to do good for the electorate.
Right. Okay. Anyway, I was curious if like there was something right as the clip ended that would, you know, change the context, but I don't think it does. You really have to look somewhere else.
Oh, we can continue if you want.
No. This is the end of where he stops talking about the border stuff, I think. So. Okay.
Tom waiting for $5 says, wrong, Adam. Sam argues there are secular ways to get the benefits of religion. Yes, I know he argues that.
That's his book, isn't it?
I'm not sure that that's true. And I think Sam often denies the advantages religions do have in humility, forgiveness, selflessness, which Sam Harris admits in this very clip that we just watched, that selflessness is a good thing, right? He's saying Trump is morally a moral lunatic because he is selfish. So you'd assume a morally sane person is selfless, right?
Right. Well, it's funny because, you know, he says Trump is like this very immoral person. Everyone kind of views, even people on the right view Trump as this not very religious person.
Right.
But isn't that, I forget which one. Isn't one of Sam Harris's books all about like trying to create a atheist moral framework to replace religion? I thought
the moral landscape, he talks about it, but
yeah. Here it is. Moral landscape: how science can determine human values.
Look up. He did a moral landscape challenge that Jonathan Haidt responded to and completely just like tore his face off, basically.
Right. Interesting. Yeah. Okay, that's interesting. Was it like a conversation or is it like a paper he threw out there?
There are clips of Sam Harris and Jonathan Haidt getting into it over moral psychology that are pretty interesting.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I might read it at some point in the future. It says, I found it. It says it's a post. Why I think Sam Harris is wrong about morality
Yep.
from Jonathan Haidt.
Great stuff.
J-Mac, thanks so much.
Oh,
For
go
second
ahead.
follow, J-Mac for $20 says, just make your kids go to bed earlier. 8 p.m. is lights out, baby. Think about how early the Amish wake up and they do fine. The early bird gets the worm, guys. So there are people in this world, and I do believe this has been kind of ferreted out by science. There are people that are early risers and
Yeah.
go to sleep early, and there's people who are late sleepers. They go to bed late and they wake up late. And I did hear, I don't know if this is true. I heard some evolutionary excuse for this, which maybe is true, maybe it's not. Something about like, it would make sense that there'd be humans that have evolved to be on different circadian rhythms, because back in caveman days, you'd have to watch out for like
Predators and
mountain lions
totally.
and shit that would hunt at night. And so it would make sense that not everyone in the caveman tribe would go to sleep at the same time. They would have, watchers and guards and stuff at night. And so maybe that's true. I don't know. I know that it feels like it's biological, because like my dad, he's like an early riser, goes to sleep early, wakes up early. My mom is the opposite. She's like a complete night person, night owl. And I'm the same way. I'm definitely a night owl.
Yeah.
And I feel like it's not like a learned thing. Like I didn't know my mom was like that until I was an adult and already like that myself. So, because that's the thing. Like my parents, they would make me go to bed. I just sit there in bed, I just lay in bed.
Yeah, you
Like,
can't go to sleep when you're not sleepy. You just lay there and waste your time.
Like,
yeah.
and my parents were smart because again, like I was a kid before everyone had smartphones. So so the only thing would have is like the Game Boy. My parents would take the Game Boy away, so I couldn't play it. And they didn't allow TV or a computer in my room or anything like that. So, and I couldn't read unless I was going to do the under the bed with the light flashlight, which I never really did because I just thought it was annoying. So I would literally just lay in bed for hours, just like, making up stories or trying to entertain myself. I just wouldn't fall asleep.
Yeah, I work until I'm exhausted. And when I go to bed, I'm asleep in like 2 minutes.
Yes.
So, and
Yes.
I do, that's like a superpower. A lot of people can't do that. So, but in my 20s, I was a night person all the way. I was a day sleeper. I worked at nightclubs. I just like night. I'd stay up and paint until sunrise and then sleep during the day. But somewhere I transitioned over time, and now I'm a total morning person. I'm like dead
Right.
at 9 p.m. I'm ready for bed. So
Yeah, I mean, as you age, it changes, obviously, or can change. It can change with my mom, but so. Short stack goblin for $2. Watch out.
Oh no.
Says, I'm fairly confident Sam is TDS patient 0. Yeah, that's a good question. I wonder. I mean, I don't think he is. He definitely has a lot of TDS, but I don't think he's like the original. Like, I'm curious as to who was the original, like the first person to like freak out an unreasonable way about Donald Trump.
It would be interesting to see his first like interaction with Trump. Like when did he learn of Trump? Like what was it? Did he watch The Apprentice? Did he know Trump before Trump got into politics? Was it
I'm sure he
Obama
knew about
stuff?
him. Everyone knew
stuff?
about Trump before. Yeah, because that was the first thing. It was like the birtherism stuff is when people were like, "What the fuck?" Because I think that was really like Trump had always said he was going to run for president, but I don't think he ever like said what his. I think he did, but no one really knew about it, like what his policies were. So he didn't really have like a political footprint. The birtherism stuff, I think, was his first political footprint. And so people perceived it as like coming out of nowhere. They're like, what the fuck? Why is Donald Trump like saying Obama wasn't born in America? Kind of going along with this sort of Dinesh D'Souza, seemingly, whether it is or not, but seems, kind of racist attack on Obama as not American. So I don't know if Sam Harris ever reacted to any of that stuff though, like way back in those days.
But that's what I'd like to know. He constantly brings up the Trump University stuff, and
right.
He sees him as an unethical business person, which I know. Obviously, he brings it up all the time. So maybe he's brought up the birtherism stuff. I don't know if we ever interviewed Sam Harris. It'd be interesting to see. Like we devote the entire interview to the TDS. where did this TDS begin, Sam?
Right.
That's offensive because he sees it just as a factual thing. That's part of his rage, is that he's like very upset that people don't see Trump in the same light as him. He's like, this person is scamming you and you're such a fucking idiot for not realizing it.
Well, that's where his rage comes from, not from Donald Trump. His rage comes from people, from his perception, gobbling up Trump's propaganda.
Yes. Yeah.
And people that he was friendly with that were kind of in the dark web, right?
Yeah.
The heterodox community.
Look, Elon Musk.
Right.
He's like, what? I can't imagine the angry emails. What the fuck, Elon? You're trying to get Trump reelected now? Are you crazy? He's a liar.
Yeah.
Trump University.
Yeah.
Don't you know? Trump steaks. Trump water.
David Harrison for $5 says, I'm in Belgium. Jordan Peterson is back on the menu. Yeah. Yo, chat. What should I buy my parents from Belgium/Paris?
Wow.
I don't
Are
know,
you on
chat,
vacation or something? That's awesome.
Give David Harris some ideas about what to buy in Belgium or Paris. I've never been to either of those countries, so I couldn't tell you.
A mini sculpture of the Eiffel Tower, right? That's what
That
you
is
get when you're in
that is
Paris.
also a waffle maker.
Oh my God.
There you go.
That'd be great. Yeah.
Nigel TRC 72 for £5 says, sure, it's not true about any religions, but the world absolutely would be better off if all Muslims became atheists. Sam is 100% correct on this.
Yeah, I don't know a lot about Islam. I know a lot about Christianity just because I grew up in it. Like I think I said yesterday, sometimes I'm demoralized because the things that I think people should learn from Christianity, they don't actually learn.
Right.
Humility, gratitude, graciousness, all these good qualities.
Forgiveness.
So, yep. Yeah.
Yeah.
They just turn it into another identity marker and do tribalism.
It definitely seems like the current incarnation of Islam has been completely detrimental to the Middle East culturally. So I would be sort of inclined to agree, but you always run the gambit of like, well, if it goes away, what will replace it? Right? It could be something worse. So
yeah. Look, there a lot of Muslims unfortunately believe Jews are their Satan. So that's a huge problem. Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I wonder if I think a lot of cultures are, I think pride is a very destructive emotion.
Oh, of course. Yeah.
And I think because you look at like Japan, which was able to, after World War II, which I don't exactly know culturally why, but it's very interesting. They basically assimilated very quickly to like a Western lifestyle and were very successful. I mean, they have all their birthright problems now, which is a different situation. But even though like culturally Japan is like still like super not like individualistic or Western whatsoever, they were able to adapt a lot of the useful technologies and cultural ideas from the West while still maintaining their own culture. And I feel like a lot of cultures, and especially in the Middle East, there's like this weird pride, this like chip on their shoulder of this association of like, if we change our ideas to match the Western ideas, the European ideas, it's like an acknowledgement that our people, our ethnic group is wrong on some like deep cultural level. And I think that really destroys a lot of progress in certain parts of the world when you have that kind of attitude. And that's part of why, people always say this about the Romans. Part of why the Romans were so successful is that they had this ability to be very proud of being Roman, but also to just assimilate to whatever worked. To say, oh, here's a culture that's doing something better than we're doing. We're not going to get egotistical and defensive about it. We're just going to adapt to whatever they're doing. And I think that those are always going to produce the strongest countries. And I think that's part of why America ended up becoming such a strong country. Is that America definitely has that attitude, I think, in a lot of respects.
Definitely.
Ostracey for $10 says, did Sam just say half the country is QAnon? I really dislike him. Did he say that? I missed it. I know he said half the country.
He kind of did.
Something. Yeah. I wouldn't be surprised if he said that. But
yeah.
Mr. Middleman for $5 says, it does feel cringe, though, when people frame it as Trump was shot in the head and he took a bullet for America. It feels like a dishonest level of spin. Yeah, I mean, he didn't really take a bullet for America in that sense. Sure, I understand that. Fair and practical progress. Thanks so much for the 2 Aussie bucks, says Sitch and Adam and Sammy. And we have a lot of emojis: a person,
know.
eyeballs, arrow, the film strip,
Film?
sad face, microphone, music, heart, a gypsy, a broom, stars, heart, queen, and a question mark. I don't know what any of that means. I don't know what kind of hieroglyphics I'm trying to read here, but I need the Rosetta Stone on that one. But thank you.
Pretty funny.
Grendel Vat, thanks so much for 23 months. Says have to catch the rest of the stream later. So close to that golden pyramid. That's right. 1 month away, baby.
Wow.
1
Okay.
month
Look,
away.
and Grendel gifted 50 memberships too. So welcome new members and thank you for the gifting memberships. That's really
Right.
generous of you.
Short Stack Goblin for $2 says, I don't know, 2020 was weird, just made up a bunch of rules. So I don't want to throw this accusation at you, Short Stack Goblin, because I don't know you well enough to do this. So I'm not saying it's about you. But I have noticed that this is part of the exact thing that I'm talking about, that we were talking about earlier, is at first, the conversation was really, really heavily fixated on there was cheating. And by cheating, I mean there were votes that were being swapped, there were ballot boxes being stuffed. There's like a lot of like direct accusations of voter fraud. And then once most of those got debunked, found out to be untrue, the conversation shifted to, okay, well, maybe there wasn't like cheating, but there was, what was it? It was like fraud. What was the fucking line? It's like not fraud, but it wasn't cheating, but yeah, like it wasn't cheating or fraud. It was rigged, right? The conversation, like once all those claims got dismissed, it changed into this, well, it was rigged because of the other laws or because of the Hunter Biden laptop or because of the media bias or all these other things. And to me, even if some of those are true and really happened, that shows exactly what I'm talking about, where people just shifted, they jumped to the argument that still aligns with the endpoint they wanted it to end to.
Crazy times. I remember covering all of that stuff.
Yes. Bold Menace for 2 months says, my wife taught middle school and polled her students about their sleep. All the top students got plenty of sleep. All her worst students got the least. Well, there you go. Exactly it.
Truth.
Exactly.
That's exactly what happens.
Guru Ralph for 30 months says, loving this Adam. AT rated supreme. Don't let Sitch and his TDS hinder your growth. There you go.
Where is that? Oh, I missed that.
There was a membership chat. Mike Cassandra $5 says, A-Team Reigns soup onomatopoeia. Spelled it the right this time. S class is the best class.
Well, you did good. Look at that.
Thank you.
Got all the proper K's in the proper places.
Thank you. Mongolian Leprechaun Silver Man from Saturn for $5 says, hey, Sitch and Adam, to answer your guys' question about dressing up as Dracula. Yes, you have to go everywhere dressed as Dracula, not sleeping. So you have to wake up in the morning, and the first thing you do is you put on your Dracula.
Yeah, look, I'm down.
Okay, Adam's down. I'm not down.
Or did we? Was that the?
I already read those.
Oh, okay, good.
CS Paffy for $20. Thank you so much. Says not pro-Trump, but I'm willing to humor some of his cheating claims back in 2020 precisely because of how shitty they were handling the votes. If I was pro-Trump, I might have been on the stolen election shit. Adam is right. Well, I think you guys are both naive. So,
oh my God, you're so offensive. How dare you?
I think at the time, to be clear, because I don't know if you misinterpreted me, I think at the time, those claims 100% needed to be looked into and adjudicated to determine whether they're true or not. I'm not saying you shouldn't look into them. So yeah, you look into the claims at the time, but obviously, they find out, oh, none of them are true. What happens? People just shift to whatever they think is true after that point. So
Tom seems to be an anti-theist. So if Tom wants to come on for a few minutes while we're wrapping up, he can DM me on Twitter. So there's some critical Tom waiting for $2. Sam, I like Jordan. Adam, he clearly hates Jordan.
Oh.
Tom waiting for $2. Adam has anti-theist derangement syndrome. Tom waiting for $2. Adam negatively stereotypes anti-theists. So look, I'm a reason. Tom waiting for $5. To be clear, I still like Adam. He just doesn't understand anti-theism or neuroscience and statistics, but those are unrelated. So look, I actually have looked at Sam Harris likes to go around and call himself a neuroscientist, right? And I have actually looked at his what do you call it? His thesis that he got to get his doctorate in neuroscience, and there's like, I think he put people into MRI machines to kind of look at their brains and compared believers and non-believers. I think he had a sample size of like 22 people. So it's kind of ridiculous to think, the guy can claim to be a neuroscientist based on this one fucking piece of research that he did that's completely tiny. So I think I do understand statistics, and like a sample size of 22 people is not really a lot. And look, I think I understand neuroscience too, but look, obviously, we're friendly here. Come on. Let's talk. I don't want to create negative stereotypes of anti-theists. Anyway, where were we?
Actually, for $5 says bellwether counties being wrong, tons of mail-in ballots, pandemic conditions, huge increase in year-over-year voting totals. This is all weird. I think the only one of that list I'd point to and say, yeah, I don't know if there's an explanation for that, or that I would agree is weird in the context that I think you're using the term, is the bellwether counties being wrong. Yeah, I mean, yeah, there was obviously a massive increase in mail-in ballots because of COVID and the COVID conditions. And obviously, if you make it easier for people to vote, a lot more people are going to vote. Then you combine it with the fact that a lot of people were really mad and really agitated because you had COVID and you had BLM and all this other shit. So the amount of voting increase perfectly makes sense. And in fact, this is why I said people don't like intuitively, this doesn't make sense. And this is why statistics are so important, and why statistics don't make intuitive sense to people. And this is why it's so easy to lie with statistics. This is why I said that the 2024 election kind of proved the 2020 election to be not rigged, to be legitimate, is that, at first everyone was like, oh my God, look at how much less votes Harris got than Biden. Obviously, this proves that the voting was rigged. And then, first of all, we would wait because they were like, oh, she got like 11 million votes less. And then obviously that number dropped significantly. I forget what it was. I think it dropped to 7 or 6 million by the end total. So it dropped about half. But then I went through the numbers and I said, well, this doesn't make any sense, because out of all the increase, or the decrease, I should say, the decreased number of votes that Harris got than Biden, only 2% of those were in the swing states. And in fact, the only states that Harris actually got more votes than Biden did was in 3 of the swing states. She still lost them, but she got more votes than Biden did. The massive amount of that loss of votes, 75% of the loss of votes that Harris got from Biden, were all in blue states. And the biggest chunk of that was obviously California. And so that kind of completely destroys the narrative that, oh, well, obviously they were faking all these ballots, and they didn't fake them this time. Because again, as I said, if you're going to fake a bunch of ballots, you're going to fake them in the swing states. You're not going to fake them in the blue states, where it's fucking pointless to do that. So again, Ashi, you have to acknowledge, or you have to admit, I think, if you want to be honest, that, again, all these things that you're bringing up are proving my point, is that the jump was made from the election was rigged. I'm sorry, the election was fraudulent because of cheating. The jump was, well, now it's rigged because people couldn't prove those claims to be true. And so people just jumped to the next claim that is more like ambiguous, vaguer, easier to not ever disprove or prove. It's just going to kind of be this ambiguous thing.
I think the claim, there was a sustained media campaign comparing Trump to Hitler. And then if they indeed, in many of these areas, mailed out ballots to entire families without them registering for mail-in ballots, right?
Right.
They're just like,
you're
say, registered to vote.
Hitler. Yeah, right.
Right. I think if you got 4 ballots coming to the house, right, of a mom, a dad, and a brother and a sister or whatever, or maybe just 2 ballots coming to the house for mom and dad, but the kid who's not old enough to vote is going to fill those ballots out and mail them in. I mean, that seems perfectly logical to me. Like, there's a lot of people filling out ballots for other people and mailing them in, because there's like literally no downside to doing that.
Yeah, well, there's 2 things. Number one, yeah, of course it's possible that happened. You still need to have evidence that it happened at all on some level that had any influence on the election, which no one has ever produced.
Well,
It's all
look,
just
because
suspect.
they immediately separated the mail-in ballots from the signatures, and so that they couldn't. They had this theory, but they couldn't investigate it because they're like, look, we already fucking looked and we didn't compare the signatures.
Okay.
So
So isn't it convenient that when every other claim of
oh my
cheating or
God.
fraud gets debunked, then we settle on the literal one that is not debunkable because there's not enough factual information to know?
Yeah.
Isn't that convenient? I think it's convenient. That's number one. Number two, again, it was, I think there was I forget which one it was. There's one of the swing states that actually this did impact. There's the whole court case, if it was Wisconsin or whatever, Michigan. But most, as I said, again, you look at the ballot differences from 2025 to 2020, and it's only a 2% difference in the swing states. The only state that fucking matters, literally only a 2% difference in Harris getting 2% less votes than Biden. 75% of that's in the blue states, 23% of that in the red states. None of that shit happened. So even if you had all in California, all the, kids rounding up votes for their parents and voting because they saw a video on TikTok or whatever, I mean, didn't have any impact on the election.
Okay.
The Booster for $5 says, did you guys see the recent Hoover Institute interview with Mark Andreessen? He said him and based Curtis Yarvin are good friends. Exciting stuff. I did not see that. No.
Wow. I don't know who that is. Mark Anderson.
Wow, that guy's got a cone head. That is unfortunate for him.
He is good friends with Curtis Yarvin. Okay.
Okay.
I don't like Curtis Yarvin. So
I know you don't.
I don't think Curtis Yarvin is like the brainiac most people think he is. So
Well, he's kind of a retard, but
yeah, I think he's basically telling people what they want to hear. So like if you want to hear those things, you're like, oh my God, he's a genius. Like most people, they think someone is smart because they agree with them. They
right.
conflate intelligence with just how much the person actually agrees with them. So
well, let me take it back. Curtis Yarvin is intelligent. Anyone that can construct a libertarian to monarchy pipeline is intelligent. I just think his ideas are retarded. So, and it's funny. Dev actually sent me some article he wrote about the whole H-1B visa thing, and he was like, he basically made this argument that the right should transform the conversation from that they're being citizens, that they're being subjects to the American government, and so that the American government, since they're subjects to the American government has a deeper responsibility for their well-being. I'm like, oh, look, he's even using the H-1B visa conversation to try to trick everyone into becoming monarchists. It's so funny. Micro Mega for 33 months. Thanks so much. Says, behold, my awesome mouse. Oh, behold.
look at that. Oh, the pyramid.
Solemn Duray for 13 months says election deniers are just like flat earthers. They can be given all the evidence, but will still cling to their beliefs and move the goalposts. I think that's mostly true.
Just, oh my God.
That's mostly true.
It's in many cases, neither side has conclusive evidence, though, obviously. So, and look, you can say,
it's like,
oh, look, you have no,
look,
you have no evidence.
You have to acknowledge it's at least 10-1.
10-1 how?
10-1 in the people saying the election wasn't cheated or rigged or whatever. It's a 10-1 to their advantage.
If they're using the rigged moniker, they're probably including the burying of the Hunter Biden laptop and the Hunter Biden story.
All those people
there are polls
yes.
that have showed that if people knew about that information, they would have voted differently. So, I mean, they're pointing just to different evidence.
Yeah, I said 10-1. Yes, 10-1. All those people had to jump to those arguments because all their other arguments sunk. Yes.
Can we list the 10-1? Can you give me the 10 arguments?
Okay, I'll go back and I'll find the 20,
one argument that it was.
I'll go back and I'll find the 20 claims.
I mean, there's
all the voter fraud beyond the woman with the boxes and all the Kraken and the vote switchings and all these things that they all said were true and all turned out to be completely nonsense. Yes.
There's the bearing of the Hunter laptop,
right?
And there's the sending out of mail-in ballots to people who didn't.
Do you know what? Okay, maybe you don't know what I mean when I say 10-1. So 10-1 in terms of like their arguments were 10-1 correct. The election wasn't rigged, were 10-1 right. So they had 1 out of the 10 where they were wrong, but 10 out of those 1 times they were correct. That's what the 10-1 means.
But all of their claims are based on the other side has no evidence. That's what they're saying.
Well, no, also in terms of we looked into it and that's not true.
Right.
It didn't happen. It's not even just that there isn't evidence of it happening, which, first of all, you need to do that for a claim. But no, we looked into it and we literally have evidence it didn't happen.
Well, no, they looked into specific things that they said, this is fishy, right? The woman's pulling out a suitcase here. It looks like she's brought a bunch of ballots from home, right? They looked into that claim and that claim turned out to be incorrect.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah. Right.
But there's literally no way to debunk the claim that people filled out ballots for other people.
I know, that's the one out of the 10-1. Yes.
Right.
Right.
That's the one.
That's the one.
Okay.
Yes. I'll give you 9-2 because I'll give you the Hunter Biden laptop story. Okay. I'll change the odds just for you.
Right.
Lethal Strain for 2 hours says, are you guys going to watch the Pam Bondi hearing? I wasn't planning on it, but
I don't think it's fair to stack those kind of odds when the suitcase thing obviously is like a very small thing compared to the bearing of the Hunter laptop and also the mail-in ballots. Do you know?
You've misremembered. You've misremembered the entire situation. When that video came out, that was the conversation for like a week. It only became small because it got proven to be untrue, and then it got discarded, and then everyone focused on the Hunter Biden laptop story.
Yeah, but how that would? Do you know how many counties mailed out ballots to people who didn't request them?
That's irrelevant to what I'm talking about.
No, it's not, because
it
it's
is 100% irrelevant to what I'm talking about.
If 5,000 counties mailed out ballots to people who didn't ask for them, that would have impacted the election far more than this one county where supposedly somebody recounted ballots multiple times. Like obviously that would change one county.
At all.
This the mail-in ballots could change 5,000 counties.
So
right, that's like a much bigger impact.
Right. You are correct, and the reason why I'm saying that has nothing to do with my argument is that my argument was about people have a post hoc belief, they have a preconceived notion of an end result they want, and they're going to jump to whatever argument they can to get there.
How are you not doing that?
Hold on a second. Okay. Because I'm not doing that, because when all those, and you can fucking go back, when all those different versions of, look, here's how there was cheating in the election came out, I said, I don't fucking know. I have no clue about any of this stuff at the time. When all those different cases, there's like 20 different things or whatever, it all came out, all those people believed them and said, this is 100% true. And then as they all got debunked, they all dropped them and they jumped to this mail-in vote thing because it's an unprovable thing that no one has really information about. The impact
but you're just dismissing it out of hand.
I'm not dismissing it out of hand.
You are.
My point, no, stop.
Okay.
My point in the beginning of this conversation, if you recall, was when we were talking about, would it matter if they shored up the elections, okay, in terms of counting all the votes in the day, would it matter in changing anyone's mind? And I said it wouldn't matter because people already have a preconceived notion. So what you're saying has nothing to do with that argument that I was making. My argument was not about
I'm making
the
a completely
level of
different
fraud
argument now.
that did or did not occur. My argument was about people's perception of things and how they're just going to believe what they want to believe based mostly on what Donald Trump said, not based on what the facts
I'm not
on
talking
the ground
about that anymore.
are. If you had,
I'm not talking about that anymore. We're talking about the rigged election, the reality of that claim.
In our what if scenario, if you had a full 100% chain of custody for every mail-in ballot and you knew every single one was filled out correctly, and Donald Trump said it was still rigged, no one would care.
No,
it would be the exact same.
That's irrelevant to what I'm saying. I'm talking about the truth claim of whether or not the election was actually rigged. Okay.
Okay. So if we have a scenario where you're saying, well, I think that people wrongly filled out mail-in ballots, and I say,
how many
I don't know
people
if there's a
did?
way to prove that or disprove that. Well, then we have to enter into the world based on things that we know is true, and not just say, well, I don't know, so therefore I'm going to assume it's automatically rigged. Even though,
look, I'm not assuming that though, but you're automatically assuming that it's not rigged.
I'm not.
Yes, you are. You're totally dismissing the whole argument.
Okay.
Look, do you know how many mail-in ballots were mailed out to people who didn't actually sign up for a mail-in ballot?
Do you?
No, I don't.
Okay, so
I
why
just
don't
know
you
that everybody is
'cause you-
claiming.
No. You do this thing where you want to create so much cover for this argument, and you don't, and you're criticizing me when you don't actually know any of the facts about it. So if you want to keep bringing this argument up, you can actually do the research. You can go to the facts, and you can say, "Look, Sitch, here's the number of ballots that people got that they didn't ask for.
Okay.
And here's
That's-
some kind of
that's no problem.
information about it, as opposed to just bringing the same up, saying, well, I don't know. So therefore, because I don't know, I can forever create defense for this argument.
Well, you're forever just dismissing it out of hand. You are. You constantly are. You're like, there's absolutely no way the election could have been rigged.
I said that. I said those words. I didn't say
Well,
those words.
kind
I
of.
said,
Okay.
I said, there's no evidence for these claims.
Yes, and
Is
that
what I said.
and
you're
that,
saying here's
you're
an
saying
unprovable
because
claim.
there is no
And I'm like,
evidence.
well, what am I supposed to do with the unprovable claim? Okay,
You're
If you
saying
said,
because
there's a
there's no
magical
evidence that
monster that changed all the
proves-
votes, that's invisible and changed everyone's memory. I'm like,
Oh,
well, maybe
look, you're
I
hedging.
don't know.
You're
I
hedging.
can't disprove that.
You're totally hedging. You're totally hedging because
I'm not fucking.
look,
hedging.
I did not.
And then I said,
I did
and
not
then I
go
said,
to the monster.
I didn't. I'm not
claim.
hedging. I'm saying
I went to the ballots were mailed out to people who didn't request them, which is a claim, a common claim people make. And you're like, well, that doesn't matter.
No, I see. You can do nothing but straw man my claim on this 100%. Because I said every time you bring this up, I say, okay, show me the evidence. And you don't do it. And then you just keep bringing it up forever. And you expect me to try to disprove your claim instead of you to prove my claim. And then when I say, listen, if you look at the results from the last election, that seems to be more evidence on the fact that there wasn't rigging based on how the voting totals came out.
Here's the way that I see it.
So you've done literally zero fucking research on this topic, and yet you will forever bring it up. And I think that's why you're not doing research on it. Because if you did and you were disproven, you'd have to backtrack on all this fucking shit.
No, I would easily point out that this claim is bogus.
Okay.
Bullshit.
Well, then that's the challenge. I want you to actually do some tiny modicum of research on this before you continually bring this up again and again and again and again.
How many mail the question is how many mail-in ballots were mailed out to people in what counties that they did not request. That's the claim that people make, and the veracity of that claim is in question.
I want you to find out that information and then find out something to indicate that there was some kind of shenanigans revolving those mail-in ballots.
Look, the thing that you say that I think is like kind of shaky is that you constantly say, well, there's no evidence for that, and therefore that proves that the election wasn't rigged, when there could be evidence that's just hidden or unavailable.
No, you keep doing this. Is what you're doing. I don't even know if you know what you're doing. It's so dishonest. It's insanely dishonest. Okay.
Okay. Well, look, I don't want to be dishonest, so
let's get
it straight.
I've literally repeated it 3 times in the last 30 seconds.
So you say the election could have been rigged.
Yeah, of course. We've had this exact argument.
Okay.
Like 4 times.
That's fine.
This year.
Go ahead. That's fine.
Well,
that's fine.
No, wait, hold on.
I don't think people have the perception that you believe that the election could have been rigged. I don't think people have that perception.
Hold on. We've had this literal exact argument that's gone to the exact fucking point at least 4 times where you go off on this thing and I say, you're right. I don't know. I'm saying there's no fucking evidence for it. This sort of unhinged events is the same fucking thing that people on the left do when they read the Mueller report and they say, well, technically the Mueller report doesn't say that Donald Trump wasn't some kind of secret Russia asset. It says they couldn't find evidence of him being a Russian asset. And I say, well, we live in a society of innocent till proven guilty, and the people that make the claim have to fucking prove it. Okay.
Right.
That's generally the way in which we operate.
Well, look,
and I'm saying it's the same
claim
fucking
that
thing. It's the same thing with the election. People need to actually prove the claim. Just saying, well, I don't know, Sitch. It's a lot of people got mail-in ballots that they didn't want. I'm like, okay, so what? So you got to prove that something fucking happened there.
Let's just ask ChatGPT. How many?
Okay, we're gonna move on and not talk about this. We're not gonna talk about this until you actually address any of the points.
Got mail-in
Answer the question to Lethal Strain. I didn't really have any desire to watch the Pam Bondi here. I'm assuming it's going to be kind of boring. I think she's going to get in no problem.
But
I don't
look,
think
we
she's
should
going to
look at
say
it.
anything particularly like spicy. But if there's like a clip or something, then we'll watch it. If something comes out on Twitter.
Yeah, that's tomorrow. We can watch it. If there's anything good, send it to us. Obviously, I'm interested. This is the district attorney, right? Or what is it? Attorney General.
Right. Because Matt Gaetz got kicked out of the thing.
Oh, I know.
PC for Jar says Candace bringing up the Jurassic question again. True.
Oh, well, this will be good.
Majin for 25 months says, hello, my supple peaches. Have you heard the good news? The news of Space King. Praise be to Space King. S-Class really whips the llama ass. What is Space? I don't know what Space King is.
So ChatGPT says, in the 2020 U.S. presidential election, several states proactively mailed ballots to all registered voters to facilitate voting during the COVID-19 pandemic. This approach was implemented to reduce in-person voting and enhance public safety. For instance, California mailed ballots to every registered voter, regardless of whether they had requested one. With comprehensive national data on the exact number of unsolicited mail-in ballots sent is not readily available. It's estimated that approximately 65.6 million mail-in ballots were cast across 41 reporting states, accounting for 42% of the total votes. So 42% of the total votes were, in fact, mail-in ballots. It is important to note that the practice of mailing ballots to all registered voters was a temporary measure adopted by certain states in response to the unique challenge posed by the pandemic. The specifics varied by state, with some states mailing ballots directly and others sent applications for mail-in ballots. These measures aim to ensure voter safety and access during the unprecedented public crisis health. And they have some links to like AP News. Looks like North Carolina did this. So it would be interesting to find out which states did this. Obviously, California doesn't make a difference, but it does obviously pull the popular vote massively up. I guarantee you. Like if they mailed ballots to every single person in California, I'm sure a lot of people filled out ballots that weren't their own, but whatever.
Okay. I mean, obviously, as I've literally said every time we've had this conversation, making it easier to get in mail ballots, pre-mailing out ballots to people is going to increase the numbers, especially the popular vote.
Right.
Yes. It's so obvious it should go without saying. Yes.
Right.
But what you have to actually determine, as I've said, I don't know, 20 billion times every time this comes out, is what states did this? How many states? What states did this in 2020? What were the voting counts comparatively? And is there any evidence beyond that there was any level of actual fraud going on?
Well, you admit that people probably, like, my claim is in conjunction with the fact that the media had this sustained campaign to compare Trump to Hitler. So people are going to do this calculation where, well, it's highly unlikely that I'll get caught filling out this ballot for my roommate that moved out 6 months ago. So I'm just going to do it. And since I'm avoiding Hitler, I'm doing the morally righteous thing, right? Do you agree with that?
That's like saying, well, listen, I mean, people were saying that Kamala was going to trans the kids away. So how do I know that someone's roommate didn't watch Joe Rogan Experience and say, oh, well, I'm going to change someone's ballot?
So
like it's possible, but like it doesn't mean anything. Like how is that relevant?
You just
to the
dismiss
conversation?
it. It's like, okay, unless we have evidence, a video of someone doing this, you're like,
I'm
we
sorry
can't really make this assumption.
Okay,
about
wait,
the
hold on. You understand why evidence is important for conversations?
Of course,
right?
I do.
Okay, so then why did you just make fun of the concept of evidence right now?
Because obviously that you would not be able to acquire that evidence, but I think it's
okay.
We can use like logic as an argument that is evidence, right?
No, you could say something is logically possible, and you could advocate for a policy to change something that is a logical fear, I would agree with that. But that's not really the conversation we're having, is it? The conversation we're having about is whether there was evidence that something was rigged. And the original conversation was about how people don't care about that. They care about what they're going to just jump with whatever their intuition aligns with. Okay.
In 2020, the U.S. presidential election, several states implemented universal mail-in ballot voting, automatically sending mail-in ballots to all registered voters to facilitate voting during the COVID-19 pandemic. These states included California, Colorado, Hawaii, Nevada, Oregon, Utah, Vermont, and Washington. So obviously, I think Colorado and Nevada are probably the only ones that are swing states.
Right. So 2 of those states are the only states that seem like it probably had any influence, maybe, on anything. And that's
True.
Colorado and
Yes.
Nevada. Yes.
Yes. Okay.
Okay.
So anyway,
So are
Look,
you
this
going to
is-
keep bringing up
am I
this
going to bring this
argument?
up again?
Are you going to bring it up again and say, well, because Colorado and Nevada pre-mailed out ballots, therefore that means that every single person who believed in the Kraken or believed in some other stupid thing that turned out to be not true, well, they're actually totally justified and valid because of these 2 states.
How many electoral? No, look, I'm just.
Oh, okay.
How many I'm curious how many electoral votes Colorado and Nevada have. Like, if Trump won those states, would it have made a difference? I don't know what the vote margins were in those states.
I think Harris won 5 swing states.
I'm
didn't she?
sure like every right winger has done this already. So
Mhm.
this is the only claim that I think logically has some validity to it. So, and
Okay.
so I think it's interesting to explore
the
it.
desire to endlessly run interference for
Oh my God.
this argument? No, I'm curious.
Why do
you
I
feel-
want to know the truth about
is
the
not- no,
world?
this is
It's
not a
not running
question-
interference. This is
this is
like
not-
a
this is not a
truth
question of the truth.
claim.
This is
Yes, it is
no,
a truth
it's
claim.
running. You just said that you think every other argument they made is bullshit. This is the one argument they made that you think, well, okay, I
Could
understand the
be
logic
true.
there.
Could
Right,
be
which I agree with
actually
you.
true.
Logically, there's a logic there that makes sense. But then whenever we have this conversation, you never say, yes, Sitch, 99% of the things that they said are fucking stupid and wrong. But there's this one thing that maybe we should look into. You've never framed the conversation in that way.
Well,
ever
look,
until
I'm
this
framing it
very
like
moment.
that now. That's
Right.
the way I'm framing it.
That's
right
very
this minute.
interesting. Okay. I'm glad you're framing it like that now.
Hold on. What are the states that we agree? Oh, it's Colorado and Nevada. How many electoral votes do... Look, and you can't trust ChatGPT either. I've caught ChatGPT slipping. So
Yeah, obviously.
all
So you have
this needs to be
double check
verified.
everything.
It
Colorado
isn't.
has 9 and Nevada has 6.
Look, I want ChatGPT.
Well, I don't trust it. Okay. So that's 15. Okay.
Okay.
So Trump
What
Trump,
was the spread?
it was 68.
So he could only
So
pick up.
even if you had even if those states were all super rigged, it would have made no difference on the election.
Okay.
Even if I was to grant that. Okay.
Well,
I'm sorry, 74. 74. There's a 74
so
spread. Okay.
Colorado has 10 and Nevada has 6. Is that
Colorado
what you
has
got?
9 and Nevada has 6. That's 15
According
total.
ChatGPT, it must be slipping. As of the
What did they say?
2024 presidential election, Colorado is 10. Oh, maybe they gained
Well, maybe
one.
they got one this year.
Yeah.
I'm looking at 2020. So
Okay. So
Right.
so it's 9 and 6. That's 15. So the
Yeah.
spread is 30 because if they would lose, but he would need to gain 68. You said, right?
he needs 74.
74. Okay.
Right. So even with that, he'd still be 59 electoral
Okay.
votes off. Okay.
Look. Sorry, right wing.
Okay. Well, there you go. I'm glad we could forever put this
Sorry.
retarded talking point to bed forever.
Sorry. It's not enough. It's not
There you
enough.
go. Okay.
Are you happy now?
I'm ecstatic now that we never have to hear this dumb argument again.
Well, it's a good argument. I mean, it's just that facts aren't there. There's not
Right.
enough. There's not enough states that did the. Look, I'm flabbergasted that so many states would just do that, right? Because of the problem of people sending in other people's ballots.
Well, now here's what you got to look at because this is kind of interesting to see if this is actually true. ChatGPT says that for this election, for the last election, those states still did the same thing.
Did they really?
It said ChatGPT says that
Holy
the same
shit.
8 states did the same thing. Assuming, I mean, ChatGPT could just be wrong, which is possible.
Right. Yeah.
So, but if that's the case, and you say, well, wait a minute, what was did Trump win, Nevada and those states, in 2024?
Well, I think he did because he said he won all the swing states, and
yeah,
Nevada
he won.
and Colorado
he
were
lost
still
Colorado,
swing states.
but he won Nevada. Okay.
Oh, okay.
Right. So that would again, and I mean, first of all, he lost Colorado. No, he lost Colorado by about 400,000. He lost, and he won Nevada by about 50,000. So you could say, well, at least in Colorado, even with the exact same rules in place, I mean, Harris won, and I'm sorry, with Nevada and the same rules in place, Trump managed to win. So that'd be further evidence against the idea that policy led to some kind of massive amount of voting fraud for the Democrats.
Well, the obvious answer is that Kamala Harris was so bad that people filled out ballots for other people in favor of Trump.
There you go. The cheating went all the other direction. There,
yeah,
obviously.
exactly.
Obviously.
I mean, I'm telling you, if I got a bunch of ballots for my roommates, I'd be filling them out for Trump
You'd be
too.
filling out for Trump? Oh, okay. That's good to know, I guess.
Just I hate Kamala Harris so bad. I have the Kamala derangement syndrome that everyone talks about. So
that is true.
David Puff, oh my God, he's so bad. He says, "Let's see if Adam really lets it go." My money says no.
We'll see. I'll wait like a month, and I'll bring up like
Look,
the people with their bullshit election was cheated. For claims that all have been debunked, and we'll see. I'll throw it out
all
there. All
my questions, all my questions have been answered. So there's nothing. I mean, we've worked through the logic of the argument. So there's no there as far as that argument goes. It's another one of those claims. Obviously, I think they mail out ballots to the entire state. You're going to get a lot of fake ballots that are just filled out by people, right? So, I mean, but you could get fake ballots filled out on either side, right? People could be filling out fake ballots.
Of course. That's another problem with the argument. Yes, of course.
Yeah, but it was in conjunction with the fact that they made Trump out to be Hitler, which I guess they did in this election too as well. So, but anyway, that was fun. Where are we at on super chats?
M8566 for $5 says, I don't understand why this Jordan Peterson is so controversial. Everything he says makes sense to me. Bill Maher. There you go. M8566 for 14 months says, Sitch's mom. Sitch, when are you going to make an honest woman out of that nice Sammy girl? God forbid I have grandchildren before I die.
Yeah, look.
Oh, there you go.
What's going on?
Yeah, Sammy, what's going on?
Are you going to do a proposal on the show?
Oh, that's not romantic at all. That's terrible.
That does seem terrible.
What a terrible, terrible thing to do.
Don't do that.
No, I would not do that.
I do not condone that.
Right.
Glad we had this conversation.
Max Tack for $5 New Zealand says, Bernie had a live stream with Hassan. Kill me.
Oh, I know.
Yeah, true.
Oh, kill me too.
Right.
Kill me while you're at it.
No
DM from Tom, but
you had all these Tom.
Look, Tom can come on another time. So
right.
I am actually interested in the anti-theist perspective, and I don't want to straw man, but I do think a lot of the anti-theists, when you kind of flesh out the claim, I'm correct about it. So what are you laughing about?
Sammy the chat says, you need to prove to me where the missing votes are first.
Oh my God.
That's funny.
That is
she wants me to
hilarious.
do, because I was going to do that video comparing the vote totals, and then I stopped because no one cares anymore. But Sammy's like, you have to do the video. Doesn't matter.
That's hilarious.
Jay Shields for 2 months says, would it be considered audience capture if you hold back what you say or rephrase how you say it because you want to convince the audience?
Yeah, that's my question.
I think if you have an opinion and you're trying to convince the audience of that opinion, whatever you do to try to convince them of that, that's not audience capture. To me, audience capture is very clearly you have an opinion and you're not trying to convince anyone. You're just hiding it. You're just not talking about it because you know that your audience won't like it. That's what audience capture is to me.
Right.
So, Kristen Branford Jar says thought on Red Note. Oh, we already talked about that. But yes,
Yeah,
hilarious.
horrible. Hope they ban
Hilarious.
it too.
Yes. Zero for $5 says, I know it's a couple weeks, but last year Adam's resolution was to get Sitch a girlfriend. What are you using your powers for this year?
Oh yeah, look at that.
Oh, is that true? That was your
Yeah, I do remember that. That's funny.
Oh, wait a minute.
Thanks for reminding me.
That was your resolution.
Last year, yeah. Last year I was like, I'm gonna get Sitch a girlfriend, yeah. So that was
but if that was your if that was your resolution in 2024, that was already after I started dating Sammy.
Was it?
I started dating her at the end of December of 2023.
Oh, okay.
So
maybe the resolution was to get you married. Maybe that was the resolution.
There you go.
Yeah.
There you
so
go.
I failed, but look, maybe I'll make that my resolution this year.
Right.
So. This is we should not talk about this, guys. This is weird. So
I don't mind.
Okay, I don't
know if people like it.
I don't want to make Sammy feel uncomfortable.
I do.
Like,
it's fun.
I don't know. Okay.
I don't want to get into that thing. I know that I don't want to name any names here, but and I'm not talking about me, but I have watched other YouTubers that get in relationships and they talk a lot about it, and it's like I don't care.
Who cares? Yeah, exactly.
Right. So I don't want to fall into that trap.
Yes.
I don't know if it's different because Sammy's from the audience, so there's some kind of narrative structure to it. But
Zero for $5 says, I know it's a couple weeks.
I read that one.
Oh, you're right. You did.
Hayden Dill says, get me a girlfriend this year. Okay, Adam. There you go.
Okay, look at this. I'm working on Hayden Dill. Do we have any eligible ladies in the chat?
Right.
Hayden, send me do you have a link to your Tinder profile or something?
There you go.
How does this work? I can pin it to the top of the chat.
Mm-hmm. Orca for $5 says, I didn't slave away in the bloody mines to discover the new A-Team tier for it to be butchered. It's A-Team Reigns Sup PPP Preem. There you go.
Nice.
Mr. Playlist Man for $10 says, you're right, Sitch. It doesn't make much sense to gain almost 8 million votes and then lose them in 4 years. LOL. It's interesting that we have this whole conversation and all these people would agree with you that the same people agree with you that if you mail out a bunch of ballots to people and there's a lot more mail-in ballots, a lot more people will vote. And that also, there was this shift because in 2020, people were mad about COVID. People were much more like Trump is Hitler. And then obviously there's an entire conversation about how people have woken up to the fact that that's not true anymore, that Trump isn't Hitler. They're not buying that. And there's a lot less mail-in ballot votes. And then they act completely surprised and don't understand why Harris would actually get less votes than Trump. It's almost like you're not operating under any sort of logical thought process whatsoever and are just wildly, trying to get to a biased answer that you want to believe is true that requires you deny all these other priors that you would agree with in a different circumstance and require that the Democrats are creating a bunch of fake ballots in California for God knows what reason.
Look, fake ballots aside, do you think that these states mailing out ballots to every single registered voter did make the vote much more robust than 4 years later? Was that a factor?
I don't know what you mean by robust.
Well, the vote turnout was the election turnout was way higher in 2020 than
on
in
a percentage base. If you had to guess the voter turnout difference, what do you think it was? Without looking it up.
No, I'm looking it up already.
No. I just want you to tell me intuitively what you think the voter turnout difference was. What percentage?
Well, I've heard people say that there's there was 10 million more votes, I think, in 2020 than there was in.
Right, but the population does increase and decrease, right, over time. So I'm saying, what do you think the percentage drop was from 2020 to 2024?
Well, if it's 10 million votes, it's probably maybe 5% because it's 140 million votes total.
It was 3%.
Yeah. Okay.
Only 3% less people voted in 2024 than in 2020. Okay.
Right, but the percentage is not the thing. It's 10 million votes is a lot of votes.
Well, that's the same thing. It's not. It's the same thing. People are saying that they don't believe that 3% people less voted this election when the circumstances were completely different. When you had the last election, you had COVID, you had a lot more mail-in ballots, you had the BLM stuff, and then this election you have Joe Biden, the corpse, drops out and is replaced last minute by Kamala Harris, one of the worst candidates of all time. And that is telling people they cannot wrap their minds around the fact that 3% less people would not want to vote because of that.
Why do you think 3% less people voted?
I just said. I think because there was an increase in people voting because they had access to more ballots from the mail-in voting.
In 2020?
Voting was easier. Yes. Voting was easier in
Okay.
2020. Also, people were really upset about the COVID shit that was going on in 2020.
Right.
And this time around, people were like, especially people on the left, Democrats, versus where these votes didn't come from. 75% of the lack of votes in that 3% total are from blue states. It's from Democrats saying, I don't feel like I want to come out, or maybe they voted for either switching their vote for Trump or not coming out to vote for Harris because they say, well, maybe Joe Biden's a fucking corpse and he lied to me. And I don't feel like I really want to support anyone in this election.
Well,
whatsoever.
I think Palestine played a role
right?
too.
Or there you
obviously.
go. I didn't even include that yet. Or there's the whole Israel-Palestine thing, maybe depressed some percentage of people voting for Democrats, right? Or a lot of people saying, hey, Joe Biden, I voted for Joe Biden and the economy got worse. So, I don't really like Trump. I'm not going to vote for Joe Biden. The fact, and this is what I say when I mean that statistics are so not intuitive that people don't understand them, that you say like, oh my God, 8 million less people voted for Harris than voted for Joe Biden. How is this entirely possible? And you go, well, that's really only a 3% turnout difference. And they were mostly in blue states anyway. And those same people say, oh, they talk about how bad it is and how America's waking up to the fact that the Democrats suck, but then they won't believe that, 3% less people will come out and vote. It doesn't make any sense. It's almost like you just jump to whatever fits the narrative. So, and actually, okay, I'm looking up at she got 6 million less votes than Biden did. And Trump got 2 million more votes than he got. Or no, did he get 2 million, 1 million? Oh no, he got 3 million more votes. So, I mean, you can even say maybe.
So that's only 3 million. That's only 3 million less.
Right. So out of the 6 million that Harris lost, 3 million of them could have switched to Trump. So it's really only, you're talking about a potential 3 million. It's really inconceivable that 3 million less people in the country just would stay home and not vote.
No, that's totally conceivable.
Okay.
Yeah. Obviously, 3 million people didn't have access to their roommates' mail-in ballots. So
there you go. Exactly.
That's what happened.
Right. Radically Milk Toast for 14 months says, Sitch, if you remember Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood, the most destructive sin was pride.
Oh, yeah.
That's true.
Pride is a sin. A little bit of pride, though, you can have, but
you need
not like the gay kind, though. That's
right.
Terrible.
Right.
Don't have that pride. Oh, my God.
RBGH fan for $5 says mass mail-in ballots, ballot harvesting, hiding Hunter Biden story, mass censorship, social media, per Dorsey and Zuckerberg, election interference.
Obviously.
Yeah, there you go.
How's that, David?
Oshacy for $10 says, Sitch, you're misunderstanding the purpose of my argument. I'm not saying the election was stolen. I'm challenging your assertion that people just followed Trump because Trump said it was stolen. Again, we'll never know this because it's like an unknowable thing, but I don't believe it. I think the whole thing that we've talked about on this channel, which it seemed like everyone agreed, seemed like Adam agreed in different circumstances, is that we all acknowledge that people generally have an emotional reaction to something first, have an intuition about something first. That's not based on facts or not based on logic. And then they use the logic or facts afterwards to try to justify the emotion, to justify the intuition. And that if you don't want to have that, you have to stop yourself. You have to pump the brakes. You have to do something like what I did in 2020, where I said, I don't know if any of the election claims are true or not. So I pumped the brakes. I said, I'm not going to adjudicate on any of these at the time. But the people that all said, oh my God, it was 100% rigged, because I want to believe that it's 100% rigged, and Donald Trump is telling me it's 100% rigged, I don't believe that those people would suddenly change their mind if there was some sort of incontrovertible evidence, because there's never incontrovertible evidence of anything. Everyone can twist things around in any way they want. Look at the Kyle Rittenhouse situation. You had some of the most clear evidence for a story possible. We have video evidence documenting the entire thing, and people in their minds could still twist it around. And if you think that that's only the left that does that, then you're stuck in the matrix. That's just how humans work, unfortunately. And you have to make a huge effort to not get sucked into that trap.
I just want to say people want a good justification. So, and I do think people, if they put up some cockamamie justification and people will always challenge your justifications. And if it's like just a bullshit justification, like the crystal ball thing, I think those are tough justifications to carry out into the world and hold on to.
Yeah, but
some
you
people
just
will,
disproved
obviously.
you literally just disproved what you're saying like 10 seconds ago.
How?
Because you looked up to see if there was a justification for the mail-in ballots and said, oh, there's only 2 swing states that it was even affected by. And even if Trump won those swing states, he still would have lost the election.
Yeah, look,
so that is a flimsy justification.
I evaluated the justification logically. So,
right, but why didn't everyone do that? Why is that argument still out there?
Probably because they didn't do the legwork that we did. So they're in the placeholder in their brain is that all the swing states did this. And
right.
So look, you walk through
my point.
Yeah, but look, if you don't know much about the justification, you don't necessarily know if it's flimsy or not. But as soon as you start digging in, look, that's why I brought up the crystal ball thing, because obviously that's like a super fucking flimsy justification. It's just patently obvious. A lot of these other justifications, people can hide in the details. So,
yeah, I've never said, and I think anyone that says this is retarded, I've never heard anyone say this. Well, I've heard people joke about it, that Donald Trump has like infinite plasticity of what he can say and people will believe it. He obviously doesn't, right?
Right.
But you, I would assume, agree that he has probably the most plasticity of any politician on the planet to say something and have his supporters believe him more than any other politician on the planet, in America at least, does.
I don't know how you can make that claim, because look,
you don't believe that. If we were to put things that politicians in America can say and have their supporters believe, and you're saying who has the largest like birth of what they can say in it, you don't think it's Donald Trump?
How many Biden supporters thought Biden was just fine? Like cognitively, no problem. Like they gaslighted themselves just as much, right?
Yeah, but even that, I'd say I agree with you. But that is like you had multiple institutions telling you.
Yeah,
this
you
thing.
had
Right.
other people out there actively gaslighting in his favor. Yeah.
Right.
So I don't think Trump is this unique
and actually that
doesn't exist elsewhere.
All of that. Wait, I never. Okay, you're adding a bunch of like things to it. I never said. I never even talked about the context of a threat. Okay,
hold on. You said Trump is like better at this than anyone else. That's the claim that you made, right?
Yeah, I didn't. You said threat. I didn't throw any threat word into it.
Okay.
Look, okay. But wait, that changes.
Being able to
context.
gaslight the population is a threat. I mean, we agree on that.
Wait,
right?
hold on. And first of all, I don't even agree with the Biden thing, because number one, the Biden thing is still only attached because of Donald Trump. And I don't think if Trump was in the race, I don't think any of that shit would have even flown. Number one. Number two, even that's one thing that compares to all of the shit that like Trump has been saying this whole time about literally so you don't agree. Okay, so maybe we'll just move on here, because we've been talking for a long time here. You don't think that Donald Trump has the widest berth of things he can say to persuade an audience over any other politician in America? You do not think that applies to Donald Trump? I don't know what else. I don't know what other politician I would possibly. You're
basically saying Donald Trump is the most persuasive of any politician. I think that's probably true at this point.
Okay, so then you agree.
At this point, yeah. I mean, it's hard. It's hard for me to think of another politician that's as persuasive as Trump.
Even with the example you give, that doesn't even really hold up to what I was even saying, because no one's It's not like Biden came out and said, "Oh yeah, I'm totally fine, Jack," and people were like, "Oh, wow, that's very persuasive," right? And then you had the news and David Pakman, other people saying, "No, he's totally fine. Don't worry, he's going to beat Donald Trump."
Yeah, they persuaded other people.
That was a light. People were like trying to cling to a lifesaver. They weren't being persuaded by Joe Biden that was true.
Well, we're talking about the ability to gaslight the public. And I'm just saying people have a unique ability to gaslight themselves just as much as politicians have of gaslighting
I would agree
them.
with that
It's
completely.
It's like a
I would agree with that
process.
completely. And if you were to say, yes, Sitch, Donald Trump has the largest capacity as a politician to influence his supporters, but the left has the mainstream media apparatus, which has a massive, if not larger, amount of control in gaslighting the public or manipulating the public. I would agree with that.
Yes. All right.
Fact, fair and practical progress for $5 says, any luck in convincing Adam to see Wicked? Perhaps I was too overzealous coding my last 3-4 super chats approaching turning level cryptography.
Oh yeah.
Oh, is that what that was? Oh my
that
god.
we should see that.
Oh
Look,
my god.
I'll see Wicked when it's on video, sure, and I can like pause it and go in the bathroom and throw up periodically.
There you go.
So, look, I want to start doing some movie review content just for fun, because I mean I did Deadline Junkies for 10 years where I basically ran a screenwriters lab where all we did was talk about movies, what works, what doesn't. And I kind of am feeling that, God, I haven't written anything in forever, so I'd like to do some scripted content. So don't hold me to it. Look, I hesitate to say this because I would like to be saying, oh yeah, I did a movie review of some movie and here it is. You guys can go check it out. So Sitch and I sometimes talk about doing things and then they never materialize. So, but yeah, I'll watch it, and we if I don't do a scripted video, we can at least talk about it. So I think Sitch wanted to watch watch.
I didn't want to go out and see it though. That was
I didn't want to either, right?
Right.
Yeah, but I don't even know if it's out yet. Watch Wicked. I don't want to go to the fucking theater where we have to like. Yeah, look, it looks like you can watch it on YouTube for $20. Oh my God. It's like they're raping us. So, okay.
Let's see. Ashley for $5 says the reason people followed Trump on the election narrative is because the 2020 election was objectively weird. I feel like you're downplaying that. We're just going to disagree. I don't think you're going to see it. I don't think you're ever going to see it. But CS Paffy for $5 says, I retract my prior super chat. I was misunderstanding Sitch. Adam is just being a gay jackass.
What? What happened? I feel like the last super chat was a big win for me, and he just completely pulled the rug out from under me. What's this other?
It did.
Adam is right. Odin's and Adam is right. So that's good. We'll just ignore this. Look,
there you go.
Obviously, the $20 super chat is far more valuable
than the $5. Look at this. With $5
super chat. Well, that's just objectively true.
Okay. RBGH fam for $2 says, do you have evidence the word find means change? What?
Right. Well, this is probably from the Trump phone call to what was the state that he was like, you need to find me the votes. That call is a mixed. I'm
glad you said that.
Mm-hmm.
What have I said every time that conversation has come up? RBGH fam. What have I said? Do you even know? Do you even remember? Every time that conversation comes up, I say, it's been a long time since I heard that call. I don't remember it. I don't know.
Oh, okay.
So I said every single time. I've not adjudicated saying, I've never bought into that narrative. I don't remember. I've never said that on stream. So
I remember that call in epic detail, and I've listened to it more than once. That call is a mixed bag because you can definitely see it either way. Trump is asking to find votes that are legitimate votes for him as if they've been lost somewhere. But he also does some mafia style pressure tactics on the guy, like, telling him, you could get in big trouble for this. This is a huge legal problem for you. That sounds like he's threatening to like sue him or something like that.
Right.
So
right.
The
interesting.
Yeah, it's not really cut and dry, and I mean I could see it going both ways. Alex Wright go ahead.
Oh, I missed that one. Alex Wright for $2 says, Adam, I wish you would consider your D straw manning. I think I mean Democrat. Yeah.
A Democrat strawman.
Yeah, stop strawmanning the Democrats, Adam.
Look, I think the Democrats have a lot of potential if they just pull their heads out of their asses. So, well, they're not bad people. They're just delusional.
Voltaire's puppet for £2 says, quick correction on the show. You say DNC attacks on Bernie Sanders, calling him Jewish. WikiLeaks emailed 7643 show plans about him being an atheist, hiding behind his heritage. A-Team is the bestest. S-Class, okay, too.
Oh, okay, cool.
I'm going to be real. I don't even remember what you're talking about. DNC attacks on Bernie Sanders, calling him Jewish?
How do you feel about Marianne Williams trying to run the DNC? That's like that would be a huge win.
There's no fucking way in hell that's going to ever happen.
You don't think so?
No fucking way. What? They don't like her.
You haven't seen that? She's actively campaigning to run the DNC.
I know she is. I'm saying she's not going to get it.
Who else is going to get it? Who do you think
I have
might
no
get
fucking clue, but
But Marianne Williamson is not even in the running in your eyes?
No, you think the Democrat establishment likes fucking...
Would you support her?
Magical girl?
Would you support her for head of the DNC?
I have mixed feelings. Because on one hand, and if people that have been longtime fans will remember this, I like Marianne Williams.
Had a little crush on her for a while.
I did. I had a little crush on her. She had that MILF energy. She's a magical Sailor Moon girl who believes that love and peace and friendship will defeat evil. And I was like, wow, that really touches my cold, cynical heart. So I was like, okay, I like this lady. I'm on board with all this. But then she became hyper woke. She completely got suckered in all the woke shit. 100% got suckered in all the woke shit. So I don't know if that's changed. I mean, she's also kind of heterodox to some extent. So I don't know if she's still woke, then I would say no. I 100% do not support her. If she's not woke, if she managed to buck that nonsense off, throw the trash, then I would support her. But I don't think she has a ghost chance in hell of winning that one.
We'll have to interview her and find out.
That'd be great.
See if Happy's just fucking with us.
CS Happy Friday says, I've come back around to Adam's side. He's just trying to explore interesting ideas. Sitch is being very dismissive. Well, there you go. Thank you. I mean, I don't trust anyone that has initials as CP, but that's just me. That's me just being dismissive.
It's CS.
Luigi Brothers 77 for 5. Aussie Buck says, actually, in Full Metal Alchemist wasn't the point that self-righteousness was the worst. Father's self-righteousness was the closest to pride, but not the exact same. Sure. I'm going to say yes. I don't remember. I did not like in the new or the correct Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood. The one thing I didn't like was that at the end, the villain is not human. The villain is that homunculus creature. I did not like that. It made it seem like it was kind of passing the buck on the failings of humanity to some monster creature instead. That was the one thing I didn't like about the ending of that series. So.
Cool.
Arithmus for $4 says, Sitch, you're making the assumption that people entered 2020 with the belief that the election was stolen and their post hoc rationalized from there. What actually happened is that people were convinced the election was stolen because of all the suspicious evidence, and once they are convinced, the post hoc rationalization kicks in to confirm their beliefs. When claims were debunked without the shenanigans, far fewer people would buy in. Well, let me ask you a question. If all the same, quote, evidence, all the same, quote, suspicious evidence exists in 2020, but it was in the Democrats' favor and Trump won, you had the little line, right? Everyone pointed to that line graph, which also turned out to be completely debunked, and people still push that stupid line graph. If all that stuff was in favor of Trump and Trump won in 2020, and the Democrats saying, oh, it was rigged and so on, whatever, don't you acknowledge that like 99.9% of all the people's opinions on the election would just be completely reversed? It'd be entirely based on what political side they support. So, I mean, yeah, there's going to be some level of vagueness is necessary. I guess what I should say is some level of vagueness is probably necessary for people to believe things, but I think that you're always going to have in any system, especially a large system like elections or America, where you have millions of people voting, there's always going to be enough vagueness. There's always going to be enough gray area, enough things that look like smoke for someone to point to. It's impossible to get rid of all of those things. And it will always be impossible to get rid of all those things.
I'm a believer. You can get rid of most of them. I think I think you can do it.
Right.
You just have to look and adapt. You have to look at what people are looking to, what claims they're making, and just adapt.
Right.
Look, there was a time when people did believe in crystal balls, but we fucking changed that paradigm.
President Fedora says, Sitch, per Reuters, 44 million unsolicited ballots were mailed out to voters in several states. However, if the states where this happened, the only swing state where this occurred was Nevada and Colorado. Well, I guess
Right.
if
Unless
Colorado counts as a swing
ChatGPT is
state.
wrong. So
Unless ChatGPT. Well, even if that's the case, then so.
yeah.
Sell for $2 says devil's advocate, incels and virgins aren't the same thing because the former are more ideological, misogynistic, and therefore they're bad people. But incels overused as an insult for people the left doesn't like.
I mean, I believe the last part.
Well, it kind of stems back to our nationalism versus patriotism conversation. Incel just become like when the term incel came out, it didn't mean anything necessarily bad. It was a self-descriptive term. And then it's sort of there's like a splinter movement of part of people that are incels or identifies incels who are like really shitty people or misogynists or very bittered. And then it becomes an insult to like align everyone in the movement or everyone on the right or everyone not woke or everyone who's a virgin with it. So it kind of becomes this complicated mishmash of things. So I don't think you should devil's advocate incel. And virgin, I think it's totally correct and justified to shit on anyone on the left or anyone in general who uses the words incel or virgin as an insult, especially if people are claiming that they're feminists because it makes them massive fucking hypocrites.
Arrhythmus says you missed one of his StreamYards. Streamlabs, rather. I don't know. I don't have those up.
Here. Sitch, you keep making the claim that Nancy Mace doesn't use the House chamber bathroom because she has a private bathroom. Do you have inside information that she walked back to her office every time? How did you get this info? I did get that info. I didn't want to tell you guys this.
He has a camera in Nancy Mace's office.
I don't have a camera in Nancy Mace's office. That's perverted. I didn't want to tell you guys this, but I'm actually fucking Nancy Mace on the down low. So I do know her.
How's Sammy G feel
habits.
about that? Sammy.
Yes.
Sammy, what is going on here?
Well, this was, to be fair, this was before I started dating Sammy G. Once I started dating Sammy G, I threw Nancy Mace in the trash can. I was like, be gone, Dot. But when we were dating and fucking, she would very clearly tell me, I was like, why don't you want to use the public bath or like the main bathroom? And she said, have you been in there? All those girls do is pee all over the floor.
Oh my God.
And she said girls. She didn't say trans women.
In a women's
she
bathroom.
didn't say men. Okay. She said girls. So maybe that's it. Maybe she thinks it's the trans women that are peeing all over the bathroom floor. I don't know. That's the real tragedy here. Arrhythmus for $2 says, Sitch, you keep saying that you support showing up the election process, but the implication of your argument is that there's no point showing up the elections because election deniers won't care. This is lame and defeatist. I think what you just said is retarded entirely. Because you can have
you said you were in favor of shoring up the process.
I am. He's basically what Arrhythmus meant, whether he meant to do it or not. I don't think he meant to do it because Arrhythmus has been a long time fan. It's like a massively dishonest argument because basically what you're saying is you can't have an opinion that's objective. You can't have an opinion where you say, well, I agree 100% that we should do something because it makes sense, but I don't think it's going to matter in terms of whether people buy, into a propaganda or not, right? Which is a massively bad faith argument. It's kind of, I said the same thing about the voter ID thing. I said, yeah, we should 100% have voter ID. I don't see why we shouldn't, but I don't think there's a lot of there's like very, very, very few instances of in-person voter fraud. I don't think it's going to change anything, but I'm in favor of having it because it just makes sense logically. It's the same thing with this. It makes sense logically. Maybe there'll be some minority of people that are convinced by it, but overall, the majority of people aren't going to be convinced by it. And I think if you think they are, I think it's massively naive if you think that's the case.
The steel man of Sitch's position is he's in favor of shoring up the things, but he doesn't think it'll work. Right?
Will work in terms of, it will work. I think it will work in terms of shoring it up. And maybe in future elections, and that's another thing, because I didn't actually say this, maybe in future elections, it'll help people believe that it's secure once Trump is gone. My only argument is that when Trump is running, it's not going to matter how short up the elections are, right?
Isn't that by implication saying Trump is a unique threat?
not a threat. I'm saying he has a unique capacity to control the conversation.
That's not a threat,
It could be a threat.
especially when
It
you're
could
in
be
the
a good thing or a
context of
bad thing,
election
depending on the
fraud.
context. So
Yeah.
right.
Look, it's a good thing if he's telling
No, but
people to be
the reason-
generous and not steal.
Exactly. The reason I object to you throwing in the word threat, which I never said, is because by front loading the word with a negative term, it like instantly makes you and Trump supporters defensive of a claim which you actually would agree with and Trump supporters would agree with. Because if you throw in threat, which I never said.
Yeah. He's
'cause it could
more
be good or bad.
persuasive. Yeah.
Yes. And everyone
That's a neutral way to say it.
right.
He's a unique, persuasive person.
Right. He is. Soto Fujara says, remember when the U.S. banned drugs like weed, pushing people to the black market and cartels where the drugs were unregulated, more dangerous? Well, thankfully, we were able to learn from history. Anyway, how about the red note? Well, it's going to be funny because the whole red note thing, Soto's, might actually backfire because, you have day one, all the idiot TikTokers are all celebrating, jacking themselves off that they're going to red note. And then they get a red note and they're like, holy shit, all these people are like bigots. And so I don't know. It might be a very red pilling moment for some of these individuals.
Yeah. What, there's going to be like bootleg TikTok? Oh my God.
Right.
And I think making crack illegal does diminish the number of people who actually smoke crack. So
Mhm.
I don't think it drives everyone to the black market.
Archie Friday says, so demoralized, I can't tell Sitch is willfully or mistakenly unable to understand my argument. I literally don't know what you're even talking about. I
What
read
was the
your
argument?
super chats. He was saying that people are going to think that the election, he was saying that he understands that people would be concerned about the election because there's all these like suspicious things going on.
Well, he's also saying that people don't just do whatever Trump says. He's saying he doesn't believe that Trump has that ability that you're saying Trump has.
Well, if you don't, okay, I'll just say it one more time, and then I'm never saying this again before I beat the shit out of somebody.
Just do it like a couple times.
I never said that Donald Trump has infinite persuasive powers.
He's a hypnotist.
I don't believe
you said
that.
Trump's a hypnotist.
Okay. Donald Trump could not tell people that he heard from God on a mountaintop that the election was stolen. Yes, some tiny percentage of people would believe that.
Some people would,
right.
yeah.
But the majority of people
maybe
wouldn't
40%.
Right? That was never my argument. Okay. But if your position is that you don't think Donald Trump is the most persuasive political candidate to come out in the last 30, 40 years, I mean, we're just going to disagree on that.
He's definitely more persuasive than Kamala Harris. Let's put it that way. That's not a stretch.
Yes.
More persuasive than Joe Biden. Worst president in human history.
Yes.
You agree with that?
What?
You agree that Biden is the worst president in human history?
Oh, I don't know the word. I mean, he's pretty bad.
There's got to be some out. It's like
I'm sure
maybe Nixon. I don't know.
Nixon was really bad. I mean, listen, even Bush. I don't know. Bush really
Bush was
up.
Worse than Biden.
Yeah,
I mean, he only got us into two.
Yeah, Bush.
Insane wars.
Bush maybe allowed 9/11 to happen, maybe, and then also got us into two wars that were horrible. We shouldn't have got into and completely destroyed America's foreign policy ever since. And also, oversaw the market collapsing in the housing crisis.
But what about what about the bro tap? That was cool.
The bro tap was cool. Yes. No, Bush is a person who seems like he's like maybe a nice guy, but he's totally inept. So
I noticed Dick Cheney wasn't there at that.
Yeah, and
funeral.
I forgot. And then Dick fucking Cheney, yes. And then the massive corruption of Dick Cheney and Halliburton and all that shit that was going on. Okay.
Where was Dick Cheney in the cavalcade of vice presidents sitting
You're
there?
correct. Why was Dick Cheney not there? That's a good, I didn't even think about that.
He was out like hunting children in Africa.
There you go.
Or something.
They eat their blood so that he can remain forever young. So I would say unequivocally, without a shadow of a doubt, that George W. Bush was a significantly worse president than Joe Biden. I think Joe Biden's not a great president. His two big failings are this complete handling of disaster border situation and a complete, well, I'd say three. I promise to do healthcare reform and to just not do anything, even attempt to do anything. And then also to completely do fucking nothing really at all to try to stamp down on inflation. So
He couldn't meet with people. How's he going to do healthcare reform if he's being hidden from 2001?
Yeah, I mean, I guess that's true. And then obviously, okay, you have to keep increasing the list. Yeah, Biden's pretty bad because then you have to increase the fact that he just was not physically, mentally capable of even being president in the first place. So
Yeah, that's
I'll
pretty
say
bad.
in my lifetime, okay, in my lifetime, I'll put Biden as number 2. Bush is the worst president in my lifetime. Biden is number 2 just default because of the fact that he was so enfeebled.
Oh my God, it's so insane.
Fair and
They should have
practical,
25th Amendmented his ass like in 2021.
right. Fair and practical progress for 2. Aussie Buck says any themes that often make you tear up in TVs and films.
Tear up.
Tear up. I'm sure. I can't think of any right now.
What is it? Any what?
Themes.
Themes.
Fondue for $5 says, "Hey, I still like crystal balls. Haven't made any D&D characters that doesn't pick up the scrying spell." There you go. CS Pappy for $2 says, "I love you guys. No homo, no parasocial." Thank you.
Okay. We got your jokes and they were absolutely hilarious. So thank you for super chatting and thank you for sharing your sense of humor with us. So is that it? Are we good?
Rhythm for Dry says, "Sitch, this whole argument was about future elections because that's what Sam Harris and Bill Maher were talking about. I don't care about 2020. It's already done. I just want no justifications for repeats on the shit." So you're right and also 100% wrong. So you're correct that the argument was about future elections. You're wrong in terms of you have to figure out why it was that people cared about 2020 or what made it so that people felt the way they felt about 2020. And I said, that's why I agreed with the reasoning Bill Maher saying that you have to think intuitively, but his end result was incorrect. Sam Harris is thinking logically, but which is an incorrect way to think about it, but he got the correct result, which is that, and I was saying if you combine both of them, the intuitive power or the charismatic power, the persuasion power of Donald Trump is what caused the scenario using 2020 as evidence of my argument. And that is why I don't think it's going to happen again in 2028. So it was actually the entire basis of my argument. Anyways, thank you all for coming. Thank you all for your incredibly generous donations, and we'll see you tomorrow.
Can't wait. Bye-bye, everyone. See you tomorrow.
Okay. We had this entire conversation like